Alright, here we are. We are here for yet more 428 Shibuya Scramble. We are going to be figuring out what is going on in the world of Mr. Kano trying to rescue... Well, he thinks he needs to rescue Maria. But as we know, Maria, who was Tama all along, is just fine. So let's see what happens on this episode. Just give me a quick second while I change the name of the stream, because it seems to have renamed it to a previous stream. Alright, here we go. Okay, so last time we had the big car explosion. And we are going to be figuring out what exactly happened in the aftermath of that. So we are now in the 1600 hour. Let's see, Maria infected. What should we... Let's start off with Kano, shall we? Alright. Arriving back at the Shibuya precinct, Kano hurried to the interrogation room. With the investigation currently on hold, he knew that taking any official action would be tricky. If he was going to break through the stalemate, he was going to need Tateno's help. The abduction, the ransom, the attaché case relay, Maria's release, and then Tanaka's death. Maybe Tateno would be able to figure out how all these elements were related. But first, Kano needed to check something for himself. Tateno would never have let Alcarawan go free. Kano needed the prisoner to set the record straight. Or would he, if he's the man with the cane? Alcarawan sat in the precinct interrogation room, looking brazen and cocksure. One glance at his face, and Kano was reminded of what had happened to Sasayama. Fresh anger smoldered at the edges of his mind. There were two detectives already in the room. It seems he wasn't made privy to the details, one of them told Kano. Sounds like they were following orders, carrying that attaché case around, the other added. Kano sat down across from Alcarawan. There's something I'd like to ask you, he said. We were just paid to do a job. I don't know anything more than that. His Japanese was imperfect, but he understood the language well enough. Tell me, how did you manage to escape from Detective Tateno? Escape? I didn't. A faint smile came to Alcarawan's lips. That's not a faint smile! That is, as one might say, a crap-eating grin. He let me go free. Liar! Detective Tateno would never do that. Kano slammed the desk with his fist. I didn't have handcuffs on, did I? He took them off for me. This had to be a lie. It's not like there weren't other ways to remove a pair of handcuffs. After he took off the handcuffs, Alcarawan continued, he pointed his gun at me. Cut the crap! Kano grabbed the prisoner by the collar. But Alcarawan went on unperturbed. He kept the gun pointed at me, but he didn't pull the trigger. So that's when I ran. Why would Detective Tateno want to shoot you? Because I saw him. Saw him do what? Let me tell you something interesting, Al-Karawan said sardonically. There was that girl who was carrying the ransom, right? Kano pictured Hitomi standing anxiously beside the statue of Hachiko. That guy Tatno was trying to kill her. Tatno, confirmed man with cane? In a fit of rage, Kano drove his fist into Al-Karawan's face. His colleagues rushed to interpose themselves. Kano, calm down! Knocked to the floor, Al-Karawan gingerly fingered his split lip. And after I gave you such good info, too, he grumbled. Detective Tatno was assigned to protect Hitomi Osawa, Kano shouted. You can't expect me to believe you're rubbish. He lunged around the table, ready to throw another punch, but his fellow detectives held him back. Al-Karawan looked away indifferently. It's your detective Tatno you should be arresting, not me. That girl's going to get killed. You need to step in line, pal, Kano bellowed. Kano, his colleague shouted. You're the one who needs to step in line. Go and cool off for a bit. Expelled from the interrogation room, Kano immediately pulled out his cell phone and called Tatno's number. Please pick up. He clutched his phone tight, pleading under his breath. But Tatno didn't answer. Kano sat down in a chair in the hallway in a bit of a daze. He found himself holding the present Sasayama had gotten for his wife. I have to do something. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. His restlessness gnawed at him like a rabid animal. Hey, Kano. He looked up to see Kuze sitting beside him, his expression grave. I have an update on Sasayama, the director began. Kano swallowed the lump in his throat. It seems the knife went in deep enough to do some organ damage. He's in critical condition. I see. Kano bit his lip hard. His handkerchief, red with Sasayama's blood, clung to the wrapping paper of Sasayama's present. Kano peeled it away carefully, so as not to tear the paper beneath. What's that? Asked Kuze. Sasayama had me hold on to this for him. It's a present for his wife. Ah, I see. I'm sorry, Director Kuze, for ignoring your orders. Kano's eyes remained fixed on the gift as he spoke. When you get down to it, none of this would have happened if it weren't for me. Some kind of punishment was surely headed his way for acting alone as he had. He probably wasn't getting out of this one with a simple written apology. A written apology, when public servants are negligent in their duties or violate regulations, they can be punished with a warning, a formal reprimand, reduction in pay, suspension, or dismissal. Fans of the Phoenix Wright series will remember how Detective Gumshoe is constantly getting his pay cut by Mr. Edgeworth. In the case of a warning, in addition to the remonstration from a direct supervisor, the individual must also submit a formal letter explaining the relevant details and assuring that it won't happen again. But Kuze calmly shook his head. What happened to Sasayama isn't your fault. Don't blame yourself, he said. As far as this case goes, I've been given quite the runaround myself. There was a rare note of vulnerability in Kuze's voice. The higher-ups have barely let any information trickle my way, but they're still ordering me around non-stop. It's a real pain in the ass. Kuze fell silent, ruminating. The quiet lingered between the two men for several moments before he abruptly spoke again. All right. I'd like to get your opinion on something. So, Mamoru Tanaka, who we found in the minivan, you know? What you think? Should we ought to maybe release his name to the media? Kuze had slipped into his childish register. He was clearly exhausted. After dealing with the kidnappers, baffling actions, and too much meddling from the higher-ups, even a veteran like Kuze is just beat. But that's not the only reason for his exhaustion. Kuze has a brother, 6 years his senior, who, despite being nominally mature, refuses to get a real job, and shows no inclination to settle down with a family. He walks around town day after day, dressed like a hippie, and treating passers-by to songs he's written. Kuze has been worrying about his shiftless brother for years now. The guy has become a chronic source of consternation. Thanks for telling us about that game. Very relevant detail. Kano was thrown by the question. It was a rare thing for the director to seek an opinion from a mere junior detective. It feels like there's something not too normal about one of Kenji Osawa's subordinates dying, Kuze went on. Kano had the same thought. This too felt too intentional to be a coincidence. So here's the question. Should I get the media involved and try to rush for a resolution, or should I be more cautious? What would you do? About releasing the name? Kano asked. It wasn't such a simple thing to answer. There were so many factors to consider. A tired smile came to Kuze's face. Don't think about it so hard. This is just so I have a point of reference. Tell me what your gut says. So, here we go. A, B, C. A, I think releasing the name should be alright. B, I think we should hold back for now. Or C, I can't make that decision, sir. Well, if we release the name, then... I'm trying to think what we gain from not announcing it. I don't think we gain anything, really. So, I'm gonna say A, and we can always come back and change it. So yeah, I think releasing the name should be alright. There was still a lot they didn't know about Tanaka. The fact that the final stop for the ransom relay was Tanaka's condo implied some sort of connection between him and the kidnappers. But they still had no idea what his role in the abduction might have been. They also didn't have any motive for why Tanaka would be helping the kidnappers in the first place. Though we, omniscient viewers of this, as we are, know that Tanaka was jealous of Mr. Osawa and was trying to get back at him. So, there we go. By sharing some of what they did know with the public, they might be able to garner some new leads. You'd release the name? Alright then. Without another word, Kuze headed back toward the conference room. On the TV, the governor's press conference was still going on. I've just requested that each of the railroad companies, starting with JR, stop running trains through Shibuya Station until further notice. As far as the roads go, Route 246 has already been closed to traffic. The executives looked pale as he spoke to the crowd. Is there any possibility of a bioterrorist attack? What about the people who are still in Shibuya? The reporters unleashed a barrage of questions. The governor's face scrunched up. As I've already made clear, this is not a complete blockade. Complete blockade, because modern Japan does not have a system for enacting martial law. There are few ways that the government could effectively quarantine Shibuya. In the case of all potential viral infection, the infectious disease law allows for the city to be partitioned into areas of restricted movement. If the authorities do not want to acknowledge the existence of the top-secret UA virus, however, taking such an action would be rather tricky legally. There's nothing to stop anyone from leaving Shibuya on foot. Isn't that what you're describing de facto... Isn't what you're describing de facto martial law? Spat one reporter. Of course not, the governor snapped. You should be well aware that martial law is illegal. I couldn't declare it even if I wanted to. If you wanted to? So this is a bioterrorist issue then? I never said anything of the sort. The press conference was devolving into chaos. Kano was unsurprised, given the circumstances. Still, everyone was doing their best, insofar as they knew how. So why not me? Kano thought. It doesn't matter what I do. I just want to be doing something. Just letting time tick by without trying to take action was more than he could bear. Kano. Oh boy. So Kano gotta worry about Rumi and give her a call. And get worried about Sasayama and visit him in the hospital. Or think about Sasayama's wife and decide to get in touch with her. So going to Sasayama's wife kind of feels like a tone of finality. Like, yeah, we're giving up on him. He's gonna die. Rumi, I mean, we already kind of had Rumi's dad, who seems like a pretty dependable guy, already working on getting her to safety. So I think Sasayama is a pretty good choice. So yeah, let's go do that. Kano was worried about Sasayama and decided to visit him in the hospital. As he was making his way toward the hospital, Kano spotted a girl sitting on the pedestrian overpass. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. Concerned, he stopped beside her. "Are you waiting for someone?" he asked. The girl simply bit her lip and said nothing. "Are you lost? Do you need a policeman?" Relatively low crime rate in Japan, combined with rather high police personnel numbers in Tokyo, mean that officers, particularly beat cops, often have plenty of bandwidth to deal with more minor issues. Again, the girl gave no answer. "Where did you come from?" Kano tried. Still nothing. He had just decided to go and call for a female officer when the girl hesitantly spoke at last. "Heaven Publishing?" After a little coaxing, she told him where that was. It turned out it was on the way to Shibuya Central Hospital, not too far from where they were now. "Why don't I take you there, then?" Kano said. "I'm already headed in that direction anyway." The girl seemed a bit reluctant at first, but eventually she agreed to go with Kano. Because her dad... Well, wait, because they said he killed himself, but are they trying to say he was the one who blew up in the van? Because he wasn't. That was Tatno. Anyway, Kano parted ways with the girl outside the building where Heaven Publishing was located. He noticed that she hesitated to enter at first, but eventually vanished inside. Getting the buzz, Kano's phone rang as he was about to continue on his way. When he peered at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tatno's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. "Detective Tatno? Detective Tatno, is that you?" There was a whole mountain of things Kano wanted to ask, just what he had been doing this whole time. Why had he let Al-Karawan go free? And what had happened to Hitomi? But while he was trying to decide what question to pose first, Tatno spoke. "I've secured Maria Osawa." "What?" The word came out as a startled gasp. "Detective Tatno, you have to bring her here ASAP. Right now she's..." Tatno cut him off. "You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once." "Hitomi Osawa?" "Yes. I heard over the wireless that the man from the U.S. Embassy had her in custody." Kano hadn't been listening to the most recent wireless traffic. Apparently Stanley had managed to find Hitomi. But what was Tatno getting at here? Wait, hold on. What for? I mean, why do you need me to bring Hitomi Osawa to you? There was no reply. "Detective Tatno, answer me, please." Tatno replied as if he hadn't heard Kano's questions. "There's an office building in Nanpaidai called South Hill. I'll be waiting for you on the rooftop. If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria." Whoa! With that grisly warning, he hung up. Kano's hand went limp. His phone slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor. Kano went to South Hill in Nanpaidai alone. The building takes its name from a rough translation of Nanpaidai, the name of the area where it is located. The official name is South Hill Building, but since this is awkward to say, it is frequently shortened. He hadn't brought Hitomi as Tatno had demanded, nor had he reported the situation to Kuze. First, he wanted to meet with Tatno and find out what was going on. I'm smelling a bad end. He took the elevator to the 8th floor. After that, he had to take the stairs to the rooftop. As he made his way up the steps, he tried to imagine what Tatno might want with Hitomi. He hadn't noticed anything suspicious about the senior detective in the lead-up to the stakeout at the Scramble. Tatno had seemed like the same man Kano had always revered. So why was he doing this? Kano couldn't think of a reason. Reaching the top of the staircase, he at last stepped out onto the open roof. The time for half-baked conjecture was past. Kano would lay his doubts at Tatno's feet. Then, sure enough, everything would become clear. Inwardly, Kano did his best to convince himself of that. A warm breeze blew against his cheek. He took a look around, but saw no sign of Tatno. "Detective Tatno, where are you?" Getting no response, he began to walk around the rooftop, calling out several more times. "It's Kano! I've come as you asked! Where's Hitomi Osawa?" Oh, where's Hitomi Osawa? Kano rolled around when he heard the voice behind him. Uh-oh. It is the man with the cane. Tatno stepped into view from behind a water tank. He led with him a young woman bound and blindfolded. "Why didn't you bring her?" he growled. Kano stared in shock. "Detective Tatno, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria? Uh-oh. Jumpy." Tatno responded by removing the young woman's blindfold. Their blindfold were removed, Maria slowly opened her eyes. Then as she gazed past Kano, a panic look crossed her face. "Ah!" She shot out her arm to point. Kano rolled around in surprise. There was a man on the roof of the building across the way who looked like he was getting ready to jump. "Oh, we know who that is. He's not jumping." I like how he looks all sooty now, though. "Why now?" Kano thought to himself, but he couldn't just stand idly by while someone committed suicide. He felt a pang of disgust when he saw Tatno take in the situation with an indifferent glance but make no move to help. "Detective Tatno, I'll be right back," Kano exclaimed. "We can finish this after." Without waiting for an answer, he raced for the other building. When he got to the second rooftop, the man was still there, staring down at the ground below. "Don't do anything rash," Kano warned, hurrying toward him. When the man gave no response, though, Kano quickly halted. The stranger was still several meters away. Kano braced himself, ready to lunge for the man if necessary. "Let's not be hasty. Nobody's going to be happy if you jump." Still, the man said nothing, simply gazing out at the sky. Surely he could hear Kano now. The detective continued, keeping his voice low and conversational. "I've got a coworker. He's one of the most absurdly devoted husbands you could meet. All he does is brag about his wife." The man continued to ignore him. "He was stabbed in the belly earlier today. He's in the hospital right now on death's door. He was happy, but now his life might get snatched away from him anyway." Still, the man appeared unmoved. It's as if the words weren't even reaching him. "Don't you think it's a waste to just go and throw your life away?" Kano waited for the man to respond. The stranger took a purposeful stride away from the fence toward the roof's edge. "Stop! Don't do it!" The man unflinchingly stepped out toward empty air. "No!" Kano sprang forward, somehow managing to grab hold of the stranger's wrist. He yanked the man back from the edge, getting only a blank stare in response. "Don't go wasting your life like this!" Ordinarily, Kano would have stayed and talked until he was sure the guy's death wish had passed, but there wasn't time for that right now. Maria was in just as much danger at that very moment. Whipping out his handcuffs, he shackled the man to the fence. "What?" "I promise I'll come back. Please just stay alive for a few minutes longer, okay?" Kano left the man staring in bewilderment and raced back to the South Hill building. When he got back to the roof, no one was there. Kano immediately tried to call Tatno on his cell, but the call didn't go through. Tatno must have powered off his phone. Damn it! Where did you go, detective? He needed to hear what Tatno had to say. He still had no idea what was really going on or what the grim truth might be. It seemed that he just lost his chance to find out. In desperation, Kano rushed from the building. But in his frantic search of the area, he saw no sign of either Tatno or Maria. Later, a precinct-wide manhunt failed to discover where the two had gone. From that day forward, Kano was empty inside, carrying out his duties as a detective with bleak detachment. Bad end. We'll lost sight of Maria and Tatno. When Kano caught sight of a man about to commit suicide, it was Minorikawa. He couldn't ignore the situation and impulsively rushed to the rescue, but lost track of Tatno and Maria as a result. If Minorikawa hadn't turned up on the rooftop, Kano would have been able to focus on his primary mission. Okay, so we know who we have to go to. It's easy enough. We'll just do Minorikawa's story here. Minorikawa needed to get back to the editing office right away, but despite the urgency, he barely stumbled along. He was swaying on his feet, only half aware of where he was even going. No, this is all some sick joke. He just couldn't accept that Toyama was dead. He let out a lifeless sigh, a cynical smile crept onto his face. Man always did insist on having his own way, but killing himself. Back when he was still a novice reporter, Minorikawa had written a piece about a middle school girl who committed suicide. The school had made a statement denying that bullying had been a factor, and so most of the media had reported that she had suffered a nervous breakdown over entrance exams. A nervous breakdown, a period of mental illness manifesting as panic disorder, stress-induced anxiety, or the like. The term is commonly used to refer to serious health issues such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, manic depression, as well as the buildup of more minor stresses as part of everyday life. Because it is so broadly and vaguely defined, it is generally avoided in psychiatric contexts. But something about the case had kept nagging at him. Had her death really been a suicide? The more people he interviewed about the incident, the more his doubts grew. The city news editor, however, would not allow him to conduct a follow-up investigation, and the reason why was simple. This was the sort of thing that happened every day. They couldn't waste time on a case that was already on the books. It was more important for a reporter to find news stories than to squander time engrossed in a case that was old news. Minorikawa understood the editor's decision well enough. That didn't mean he had to like it. He'd been sulking up on the roof, slowly nursing a cigarette, when the paper's local news copy editor, a copy editor at a newspaper, an employee who evaluates the quality and suitability of reporters' copy and coverage, effectively the boss of a group of reporters. However, the copy editor typically works under a section editor, who has the final say about what makes the page, a middle management position, caught between upstart reporters and an angry section chief. The paper's local news copy editor, Toyama, happened to drop by. Did they say no to the follow-up interviews? Toyama asked. About that girl's suicide? The name of the girl who killed herself was Chiharu Fuyutsuki. After reading her diary, Minorikawa became convinced it wasn't an ordinary suicide. 6 years from now, Minorikawa will run into a certain teacher, and the investigation into the student's death will be reopened. But that's another story for another time. Aw, man. Apparently this game didn't sell super well, so it did not get a sequel. The only sequel it actually got was Kanon, the anime. It also got Spike Chunsoft to not make a visual novel like this ever again. They did Danganronpa after this, and I don't remember if the people who wrote, any of the people who worked on Danganronpa did 999, but very similar vein. Yeah, Minorikawa expelled a plume of his smoke along with his sigh. Nothing tasted quite as bad as a cigarette when he was down in the dumps. So what are you going to do? I'm not going to do anything, Minorikawa said. The editor told me no. Oh. Editor said not to? You sound like a child. The rebuff made Minorikawa's temper flare. There are other interviews to do. I want to follow up on this, but there isn't any time. Dumbass. Toyama hauled off and hit him right across the face. What happened to I write what I feel in my heart? That's the one thing I refuse to back down on. What happened to the guy who used to bitch at me like that? Toyama's words hit their mark with painful precision. The interviews aren't over until you have what you need. No, you refuse to let them be over. You go after the truth, no matter what anyone tells you. Isn't that what being a journalist is all about? Minorikawa scowled in chagrin. The man was exactly right. Until you have what you need. Those words stuck with Minorikawa ever since. In fact, he'd quit the paper to become a freelancer because he couldn't do his job the way he wanted while trapped in that hierarchy. Now he wondered if Toyama hadn't killed himself, but had instead been the victim of a terrorist attack. But after considering the idea for a moment, he thought bitterly, so what? The reasons and the details hardly mattered at this point. What mattered was that Toyama was dead. Minorikawa sat down listlessly and stared up at the sky. The blank swath of blue made him feel all the more worn out. Just what had all the days running around been for? He felt so empty, so hollowed out by loss. All his motivation had drained away. He had no idea what he should do next. Hey, Minorikawa, what should you do? He tried to listen to his inner voice. You've forgotten your passion, you needed to get that back. Stand up, right now, you just need to forge ahead. Yeah, stand up, right now, you just need to forge ahead. Because I'm thinking the other one, finding passion, he's going to try to like go up on the roof. Yeah, that was his only option, really. He couldn't just let things end like this. He still didn't have what he needed for his articles, so Minorikawa took a deep breath, ready to get back on his feet. Before he could, however, a young man stumbled across his path, taking a nasty fall on the pavement. Oh, damn, that hurts. The youngster scrambled back to his feet and turned to Minorikawa with a snarl. What are you looking at, pal? The young man clutched a piece of timber like a club. There was a nasty gleam in his eye. I'm not looking at anything, Minorikawa sighed. I just happen to be looking in your direction. Shut your yap. Apologize, bitch. Now. The young punk raised his cudgel. What for? You tripped me, man. Ain't you gonna apologize for that? The kid had stumbled all of his own, but was probably too embarrassed to admit it. Guess he's got to vent his anger at someone. Listen, kid, Minorikawa said. It's not my fault you're such a klutz. You know, like the pedal in a car that's got a manual transmission? Oh, that's a clutch. Okay, so then like lumps of earth or clay. Oh, those are clods, you say? Right. So then we're talking about a sort of social get-together for coffee and conversation, huh? Oh, right. That's a clutch. Is it when you try to fix something using stuff that isn't really meant for that purpose? That's a kludge. Oh, okay. Thanks, game. The hell you just say to me? You had a death wish, pal? With a murderous glare, the punk advanced on him, brandishing his weapon. Hey, Minorikawa said. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? Alright, I'm sorry. Bring it on. Is it fun hitting people? Yeah, we gotta ask that. Is it fun hitting people with that thing? The corner of the punk's mouth curled up. Oh yeah, real fun. Only a dumbass beats people with their bare hands. Wow, Kazuma Kiryu called out. You just wind up hurting your fists. If you're gonna enjoy some violence, you gotta have yourself a weapon. Aha, I see. In that case, maybe give it a rest with that stick, yeah? Huh? What for? The punk scowled in irritation. But don't get me wrong, Minorikawa said. I'm just saying that there have to be better weapons than that. Something that could take a man down in a single blow. The kid stopped to consider Minorikawa's words for a moment. I get you. Yeah, you might be right about that. I think I have just the thing. May as well go with my usual. He tossed away the piece of wood on the side of the road. Don't you go anywhere till I get back, got it? Yeah, sure thing. Minorikawa watched as the punk headed back the way he'd come. Man, he murmured, what a dumbass. Looking around, he spotted a taxi parked close by. Oh, it was Kimazuka. Do you need a ride, sir? Kimazuka asked, all politeness as he opened the back door. If you're heading to that publishing office again, I can get you there in 10 minutes. Kimazuka's driving was as smooth as always. He wove his way skillfully through a series of backstreets. There was some big explosion earlier, he explained. The main roads are all gridlocked. Yeah, Minorikawa muttered. I was there when it happened. Oh wow, really? I'm glad to see you're not hurt then. Still, what a terrible thing. That minivan. I hear someone was inside when it exploded. Not sure if you were aware. Yeah, I'm aware. Oh, nothing gets past a reporter like you, I see. Kimazuka flashed Minorikawa an approving smile through the rearview mirror. How much have you heard, then? Rumor has it that the person who died was a middle-aged man. Oh, huh. We taxi drivers tend to hear quite a bit ourselves. Kimazuka chuckled, but Minorikawa just cast his eyes down forlornly. You look tired, sir. Yeah, I guess so. His reply was barely audible. Suddenly, someone rushed out into the street right in front of the cab. How many times is this? This is like the fourth time this has happened. Look out! There was a heavy thunk as the taxi crashed into the pedestrian. Did we just kill Achi? Screeching to a halt, Kimazuka and Minorikawa jumped out of the vehicle to find a young man splayed out on the street. Hey, the driver called. You alright? The fallen pedestrian was practically still a kid and he wasn't moving. Kimazuka hunkered down and jostled his shoulder, and his expression stiffened in alarm. Minorikawa checked the young man's pulse, but couldn't detect any heartbeat. Oh no, Kimazuka said. Tears began to well up in his eyes. Minorikawa turned to him in surprise. You knew him? I did. Kimazuka cradled the young man in his arms. I'm sorry, but you'll have to find yourself another taxi, he said. I'm going to turn myself in to the police. Looking down at the boy's unmoving form, Minorikawa felt a pang of guilt. No, he said. I'm the one who's been asking you to drive around so recklessly all day. This is on me too. But I'll go with you to the cops. The two men decided to head to the station together to surrender themselves. There probably wouldn't be time to work on writing articles while they were being interrogated. But that was just how it had to be. This was the right thing to do. Minorikawa just had to keep telling himself that, knowing that it was the truth. So we have to do something with Achi's story, right? Bad end. Surrender to the police. Minorikawa's day ended in disaster when the taxi he was riding in hit a young man, Achi, who ran out into the street. But why'd the kid rush out into the intersection like that? The answer lies in Achi's story. Let's go. Let's see, did we change Kano's history? We did. Alright, that's good. But yeah, let's do Achi. Achi could hear ambulance and police sirens wailing on the main road. He looked down at Hitomi, slumped on a park bench beside him. You sure you're not hurt? He asked quietly, offering her a bottle of water. I'm okay. Hitomi took a sip from the bottle. Thanks. I think I've managed to calm down some. Some of the color had finally returned to her face. So, Achi began hesitantly. Inside that minivan, Maria wasn't in there. There was relief in her voice, but also a note of pathos. I got a look in the windshield. There was a man laid out in the back seat, but nobody else. The dark cloud lifted from Achi's face. So it wasn't your sister? No, I didn't see his face, just that he was wearing a business suit. Achi felt the tension ebbing from his body. That's good, then, that it wasn't her. I'd been worried. It was a shame about the poor devil who had been killed, though. Who was it? Why had he been there? So, I guess now we're out of leads, Hitomi murmured. She hung her head. We could try the surveillance center again for now, Achi said. It'll probably give us better odds of finding your sister than just walking around. I guess you're right. Shall we then? Hold on. Achi had a sudden flash of inspiration. My house is a lot closer from here. Maybe I should ask my dad if we could check the cameras from home. You can do that? We have the same system at our house. I'm sure my dad will let us use them. Yes, I'm sure my dad will let us spy on the whole of the city. I mean, I guess we did anyway, which is kind of sketchy to me, but whatever. The two got up and headed for Endo Electronics. Hachi decided to let his father know they were coming. He turned on his phone as they walked along. He did it off for a while, so first he checked his voicemail. There was one message. Wondering who might have called? He played it back. This was in the days probably before cell phones had really good batteries. So, gotta keep it off now and then. Is this Achi Endo's personal cell phone? This is Dr. Seiki from Shibuya Central Hospital. Seiichi Seiki, heart specialist and Suzune's attending physician, a preeminent surgeon who has successfully performed the Batista procedure, wherein the left ventricle was reconstructed after a third of it has been removed. That is Batista, and not Dave Batista, by the way. The Dave Batista maneuver. Achi's expression stiffened. He pressed the phone closer to his ear. There has been a sudden change in Suzune's condition. I tried calling your home as well, but got no answer. Achi felt the edges of his vision growing dim. As her brother, it would be good if you can come to the hospital as soon as possible. It's... Achi? He told me his voice was full of concern. Sorry, I just gotta make a call here. Fingers trembling, Achi dialed his house. The phone rang several times before switching over to the answering machine. Damn it. Where the hell are you, Dad? What's wrong? Tommy asked. It's Suzune. It sounds like things have gotten pretty bad. Well, then we need to get to the hospital right away, Hitomi said. She sounded as anxious as Achi was. We can't go yet. Achi shook his head quietly. First, we have to go save your sister. Hitomi bristled angrily at that. What are you talking about? She grabbed Achi by the arm and shook him. Right now, you need to be thinking about your sister. I can't. I made a promise to Suzune, a promise to help people and see things through to the end when something important is on the line. He struggled to get the words out. If I break that promise, then I really am no good to her. But Hitomi didn't look like she was going to back down. Boy, get back here! A threatening shout rang from nearby. Achi looked around, startled, and saw a boy of about high school age bolting out from behind a building on a side street. Several slightly older young men were hot on his heels. Achi knew their faces all too well. They were all members of SOS. They caught their quarry just before he could make it out into the main road. Gotcha, newbie. So the kid they were after must have been a member too. Let me go. Oh, we'll let you go, alright. After you pay up. One of the young men snatched the boy by the collar and shoved him against the wall of a nearby building. Ow! The boy's face scrunched up. What are you talking about? Playing dumb, huh? Interjected one of the onlookers. We told you that members all have to pay monthly dues, yeah? The privilege of getting to call yourself SOS don't come free, after all. Achi felt his blood boil. SOS was trying to pull a shakedown on this new kid under the guise of calling it dues? Shakedown is slang for extortion, a full-fledged crime. Naturally, the direct shakedown, give me all your money, punk, is quite unpleasant. More roundabout ways of being shaken down can still leave a bad taste in one's mouth. Someone who's surrounded by the street by 8 people in pompadours who said, begging your pardon, but could you please hand over your money, might suffer no physical harm, but would still be the victim of a shakedown. It would have been unthinkable for them to do something like this back when Achi was running the show. Hey, he barked, let the kid go. He marched toward the group. Say what now? They turned to look, their faces immediately going pale. Oh, hey, Achi. Let him go. Achi focused his glare on the fellow holding the kid until he released his grip. You guys always go around doing stuff like this? None of the gang members answered. They merely turned their gazes glumly to the ground. Hey, Achi turned to the younger boy. Since when have they been doing this? But of course he realized there was no way the newbie would be able to tell him. Never mind, you can go. Achi gestured toward the main road. The boy was quick to run off. Achi waited until the boy was gone before turning back to the others. Does Susumu know you're going around collecting dues like this? He asked. Man, we don't gotta tell you that, one of them muttered. Not that you deserted. What did you just say? Achi leaned in close, getting right in the guy's face. He was met with a defiant sneer. This ain't the old SOS anymore. Not the old SOS. Hachi thought back to the other gang member he'd run into earlier with the malicious gleam in his eyes. That guy. Pretty sure he said his name was Kiryu? Back when Hachi had been with SOS, he'd never have let a guy like that get away with acting all high and mighty. Now it seemed like all these young fellows are ready to follow suit, eager to take him down a peg. You're old news, pal. Ain't your business to tell us how to do things. Hachi felt a confusing flood of anger and sadness that he couldn't quite control. I'm not messing around here, you guys. He grabbed the nearest punk by the collar and hefted him up in the air. Then someone shouted from below him, "Hey, what are you doing?" Hachi put down the guy and turned around to see Susumu standing there. Mind telling me just what's going on here, Hachi? Susumu flashed his underling, with a sharp glare. They immediately took off to their heels. Yeah, I think we'll let him go and we'll figure out what's going on. Just what the hell was going on with SOS? Hachi needed to talk to Susumu. I asked what was going on here. There was a threatening note in Susumu's voice. That's what I want to know. What the hell's happened to SOS, man? Susumu's face twisted with displeasure. You're an outsider now. That's none of your business. I don't give a damn if it's my business or not. When I left you in charge of SOS, You shut your damn mouth, Susumu roared. Yeah, that's right. You left me in charge. So don't you dare give me any lip now about how I run things. Sudden ferocity left Hachi at a loss for words. You're not the one busting your ass out here. I am. Susumu stalked toward Hachi, his face red with emotion. I've had to work so hard to keep things going with you gone. Do you have any idea what it's been like? Do you know what I've had to put up myself through to keep SOS together? There was nothing Hachi could say to that. He just kept his mouth shut and let Susumu talk. You were gone. I thought maybe I could do things like you did. All at once, Susumu seemed to deflate a little. He hung his head, hiding his face. And if I couldn't be like you, then... Hey man, I get it, and I'm sorry. But Susumu kept his face averted. Please, he muttered. Stay out of our business. Then he turned on his heel and headed off without looking back. Hachi watched him leave, feeling a painful sting. Hachi? Hitomi asked after Susumu was gone. Are you sure you're okay leaving things like this? Hachi shrugged heavily. Susumu said he's doing what he can. It's not my place to butt in. He turned his back on Hitomi. He still needed a moment. Hachi, you're being unreasonable. About what? He felt like he'd been wounded to his very core, and he wasn't sure what to do about it. You want to help people who are in trouble, right? Hitomi asked quietly. Yeah, I guess. Hachi's voice was glum. Well, I'm in a whole lot of trouble right now. Yeah, I know that. No, Hachi, you don't. Hitomi's tone was clipped and firm. Please, go to your sister. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter now. Yes, it does. Hitomi's shout stopped him in his tracks. Hachi, right now. The thing I'm having the most trouble with is that you won't go to the hospital. Don't you get it? How can I possibly be happy with you helping me if you have to sacrifice your own sister to do it? Hachi couldn't answer that, and he knew it. Please, go to the hospital. I'm asking you to. I'm definitely someone in trouble, so it doesn't count as breaking your promise, right? I appreciate that, Hachi said softly. Now remember it when this is all done. So yeah, how about we drop by the hospital for a bit? I don't know. Which one sounds better? I think... I don't remember it. Oh. Okay, I'm getting it. He's saying, you know, we'll do it after, or let's go right now. We'll do it. So yeah, how about we drop by the hospital for a bit? The emotions Hachi had been trying to hide now came welling to the surface. We'll go see Sasune, and after that we can go look for your sister. Would that be okay with you? That would be more than okay with me. And and at long last, Hitomi smiled at him. Back in sync with each other, Achi and Hitomi headed to the hospital. So, what happened with him running in front of the car? Does that come later? Let me see. Hang on a second. So where was that with Minorikawa's story? So that was about 1620? Okay. So it's about now that would have happened. Okay. Well, we'll continue with Achi's story for now. Shibuya Central Hospital was one of the foremost general hospitals in Japan, outfitted with top-notch medical facilities and staffed by highly skilled personnel. Individuals like Suzune, with rare blood types, were sent to the hospital from far and wide because of its cutting-edge hematology center. The hospital division that deals with blood. Its goal was to provide high-end care to patients with blood disorders, including blood screening, treatments, transfusions, the management of the supply of blood products, and other related services. Achi asked Hitomi to stay in the waiting area while he headed on into the hospital proper. From the visitor's entrance, he passed by the nurse's station, then entered the cardiovascular medicine section and walked along a row of examination rooms. The cardiovascular system includes the heart, as well as the various blood vessels that circulate blood throughout the body. Cardiovascular medicine deals with heart and blood issues such as angina, heart attacks, heart failure, irregular pulse, and the like. He walked by the first room as quietly as possible, catching sight of a mother and her daughter sitting together in chairs in the hallway. The mother was crying softly. "Takuya, he's only 15, she murmured under her breath. The name Takuya didn't ring a bell. It was the only 15 that got a reaction out of Achi. Only 15. Couldn't imagine anything good coming after that. To be cruelly taken away when one was still so young. Achi could feel the woman's pain deeply, as if it were his own. When he reached Suzune's room, Dr. Saiki, the attending physician, explained her condition. The doctor did his best to keep his explanation simple, but Achi was too worked up to process much of what he said. Hey, I just noticed something. The symbol on Achi's shirt is gone. The mean clean. That's interesting. Wherever it went. He did manage to wrap his head around a few things. At around 10 o'clock that morning, Suzune had a seizure. For a while it had been touch and go, but finally her condition had stabilized. However, since she hadn't regained consciousness yet, she wasn't allowed any visitors. That was the gist as far as Achi could tell. What's your father doing today? He still hasn't come by, Dr. Seiki said. Achi wasn't sure what to tell him. It was certainly odd. There was no way his father wouldn't have rushed right to the hospital if he'd heard Suzune had taken a turn for the worse. I'll give you a call when she's woken up. For now, you can head on home for the day. Alright. Please keep a close eye on her, Doctor. Somberly, Achi went to find Hitomi in the waiting area. Is she gone? Outpatient reception had closed for the day, leaving the hospital quiet. His footsteps echoed softly in the corridors. Then he walked along a peculiar sound drew his attention. It had come from over by the base of a nearby stairwell. Achi took a peek around the corner. Is that Stanley? In Kanan? The sight that greeted him nearly made him gasp aloud. In the dim light up ahead, he saw Kanan. And she had some white guy pressed against the wall, a knife to his throat. Achi quickly yanked his head back out of view. Could it be? Was this the man Kanan said she was after? Achi had to resist the urge to go charging out there. Some amateur heading in half-cocked might well be more of a liability to Kanan than any sort of help. He heard her mutter something to the man in English. We know nothing about Alphard's background, nationality, sex, age. Achi could just barely make out the words, but since it was all in English, he had no idea what they meant. We do know that whoever they are, they have connections to Langley. Langley, slang for the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, headquartered in Langley, Virginia. Similar to referring to the Japanese government as Nagatacho, the CIA has other nicknames including the Company, the Agency, the Second Government, the Invisible Government, and the Coup Makers. Achi peeked out again very cautiously, in time to see the man raise an eyebrow at Kanan's words. Interesting. That doesn't mean you need to threaten me at knife point, though. He flashed her a thin smile. It does, actually, because I happen to know that you're a CIA agent. Technically known as officers, the CIA refers to its own spies as agents. Someone in charge of directing agents is called a case officer. Case officers are stationed at embassies across the world in the public guise of diplomats, soldiers, and the like. No sooner were Kanan's words out than the man grabbed her arm and tried to hurl her against the wall. Just before her head connected, though, she jackknifed her upper body forward, then planted both feet against the wall and kicked off with tremendous force. She used her momentum to launch herself forward, regaining her position with her knife against the man's throat. But during his brief opening, the man had managed to draw a gun from inside his jacket. Now the barrel was pressed right against Kanan's heart. She swallowed the lump in his throat. Why are they at this hospital, by the way? How about we call a truce? Kanan said softly. She withdrew her knife. Yeah. Sounds like you and me are both after the same thing. The man likewise lowered his gun. With a faint smile, Kanan turned her back on him and vanished down the adjacent stairwell. Achi had no idea what had just happened. Hey, that makes two of us. They'd stopped fighting, though, so this guy probably wasn't Kanan's mastermind after all. If only Achi spoke a little English, he might have been able to follow their conversation. He found himself wishing he'd taken school more seriously. When he looked again, he saw that the man, too, had disappeared. Yep, I have no idea. Hitomi stood up from her chair as Achi hurried into the waiting area. How's Suzune? She asked. For now, she's not in any immediate danger, they said. That's good to hear. But more importantly, Kanan was here just now. What? Why? I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. Achi slumped his shoulders. Huh? What? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Exactly. I couldn't understand anything she was saying. Hell, he couldn't even figure out how to get through to Hitomi. May I have a moment? A voice spoke unexpectedly from behind Achi. It is, yep. His breath caught in his throat as he turned around. Standing there was the man Kanan had been struggling with. What's up? Achi asked. He tried to sound as nonchalant as possible. But the man wasn't looking at Achi. You're Hitomi Osawa, is that right? Yes. Hey, Achi snapped. Keep your distance. He stepped protectively in front of Hitomi. This guy, he's not what he looks like. Achi clenched his fist and adopted a defensive posture. Huh? Huh? Hitomi seemed panicked. Achi said, this might be the person Kanan was warning her out. I don't know who he is, but he's not our friend. Well, we figured out he wasn't, so that might be the person Kanan was warning us about. I don't know who he is, but he's not our friend. The man calmly reached into his jacket pocket. Fearing he might be about to draw his gun, Achi braced for action. Oh. My name is Jack Stanley. I'm a security assistance officer with the U.S. Embassy. Achi held back his punch as the man held out his ID card. Diplomats are issued diplomatic passports and diplomatic ID cards by their home governments. Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs also issues its own form of diplomatic identification card. The CIA provides such identification to its operatives working overseas to help maintain their false identities. Oh, it's expiring in December. It expired in December 31st, 2009. Oh, you gotta get that renewed, buddy. Ambassador signature John Hancock. That's pretty funny. Nicely done, Japan. To afford the other every assistance and protection of which this person may stand in performing the work of mission. Okay, so it's a little bit Englishy. For official foreign mission, diplomatic identity card. Security assistance officer. Yep. All looks good. Control number 1049. Embassy? What does someone from the U.S. Embassy want with me? Hitomi asked timidly. You're being targeted by a dangerous criminal. I'm here to take you into protective custody. Custody? Achi's temper flared. Buzz off, pal. We're busy here. Busy searching for Maria Osawa? Stanley asked. Achi and Hitomi exchanged glances. I know the full details of the trouble you currently find yourselves in. Well, alright then, Achi said. Then you should know we don't have time to get taken into custody. I'm afraid you don't understand the situation that you're dealing with. We're up against a dangerous international criminal here. Taking reckless action is only going to put her in danger. Don't be a fool. This is no time to play the knight in shining armor. Hey! Achi was infuriated, but he couldn't think of a comeback. After all, it was true that Hitomi had run into danger time and time again while she was with him. But I'm already safe, Hitomi insisted. I'm only right here now because Achi has been protecting me. She eyed Stanley sharply. I've got Achi with me. I don't need your protection. Achi felt a sort of pride that practically brought tears to his eyes. If Hitomi would have let him, he'd have given her an enormous hug. Stanley grimaced in resignation. Alright. In that case, how about I join your search for Maria? I can help keep you safe that way instead. I don't know. Hitomi grabbed hold of Achi's sleeve. The Stanley fellow didn't have the most trustworthy face, Achi thought. But he realized he might be biased after being chased around by foreigners all day. After all, this guy really were after Hitomi. He probably already had made a show of force. Not only did he have a gun on him, he was sufficiently skilled in martial arts to hold his own against Kanan. He'd have no trouble taking down a single unarmed opponent like Achi. Hitomi, I get the impression the Stanley guy's not our enemy right now. Hitomi gave a slight nod. Alright, I trust your judgment on this, Achi. Now then, what's the plan from here? Stanley asked, not wandering aimlessly around town, I hope. There was a trace of snideness in his voice. You can just keep your mouth shut, Achi replied. We wander around town all day if we feel like it. So you can play the snarky game, he thought to himself. Poor Hitomi looked distressed. Very well, if that's what you want. I can stay quiet. But first I need to inform the police that I have Miss Osawa in my custody. Wait, hold on, Hitomi blurted. That isn't a good idea. Stanley inclined his head. Why is that? Well, since you already seem to know most of the story, Hitomi quickly explained the kidnapper's threat and described the search for the minivan. Stanley remained quiet, listening with obvious interest. I see, he said when she'd just finished. Still, when that minivan exploded, didn't that make your promise to the kidnappers a moot point? Hitomi nodded. I suppose it did, didn't it? Let me just ask one more question. Do either of you know a detective by the name of Tatano? No. We haven't run into any detectives. Yeah, exactly. The only folks we seem to run into are guys who are after Hitomi. I see. A grim expression crossed Stanley's face. Right. We're going to get in touch with the investigation task force. I'll have them contact your parents for you. Would you mind speaking with them so they can confirm it's really you? Sure, alright, Hitomi said. Stanley got on his wireless and described their current circumstances to the police. Mr. Endo, hold on. Suddenly Dr. Seiki appeared running down the hallway. There's something I forgot to tell you. Regarding your father. Oh? Achi got a sinking feeling. I got a call from him yesterday afternoon, and he asked me something rather odd. Preparations for a transplant? I'm sorry. I'm not entirely sure I understand what you're asking. Seiki clutched the receiver. Daisuke Endo's brooding tone was more than a little disturbing. No, it's alright, Endo said. This is all just difficult to talk about, Doctor. Please forget I said anything. There's just one important thing I'm going to let you know. Yes? There's going to be a brain-dead woman coming your way at probably around 9 o'clock this evening, I expect. Her blood type is Bombay. Bombay was the extremely rare blood type that Endo's daughter Suzune possessed. Any transplant donor for Suzune would also need to have the Bombay blood type. Since she has the same blood type as Suzune, the transplant itself isn't an issue, Endo continued. The only thing I'm concerned about is whether the procedure can be done with a limited time window. And I hate to trouble you, but it just called because I think it would be best to prepare for the surgery as soon as possible. The more Saeki heard, the more disturbed he grew. It felt like he was listening to this man go on about some strange delusion. Doctor, please, just take good care of Suzune. With that, Endo hung up. Interesting. Hachi kept quiet as he listened to Dr. Saeki tell his story. Of course, that was yesterday, and I still haven't heard anything about a brain-dead girl turning up. After all, only God would know when someone would wind up in a state of brain death. But still, there was just something very strange about what your father said. It was as if he was certain that someone was going to wind up brain dead, or... Just stop right there, Hachi exclaimed. Stanley and Hitomi turned in surprise. They were still in the middle of their wireless call to the police. Don't get me wrong, the doctor said hastily. I'm not trying to imply that your father would hurt anyone. What I'm worried about is your father's mental state. No! Hachi interrupted him again. That's not it. His own words from earlier spun within his head. So long as we have these cameras, this guy has nowhere to run. The security cameras. I'm sure this is the place. The man with the cane. He'd been on the phone with someone. That didn't mean anything. It was just a coincidence. It couldn't be true. Hachi searched desperately for some other explanation. Does Maria have Bombay blood? That was it. Anyone from the downtown committee could have used the camera monitoring room. Yeah, no one's been by to check today. Nothing wrong with a little nap, yeah? No dice. No one from downtown had been by the surveillance room today. It couldn't be. It couldn't. She began to tremble. Is something the matter? Hitomi asked. Hachi, you're as pale as a ghost. Hachi gazed beseechingly back into her face. With just one simple question, he could have cleared this whole thing up. Please tell me I'm overthinking this. He prayed inwardly before asking. Hitomi, would you mind telling me your blood type? Why do you ask? Please just tell me. I have a sort of weird blood type, Hitomi said. It's called Bombay. But why didn't you bring this up earlier when I was explaining, when Hachi was explaining his sister's Bombay? She knew that. Why wouldn't she make that connection? Like, oh, I'm looking for somebody with Bombay blood. You would kind of probably want to say, oh yeah, by the way, I have Bombay blood. Okay, that's a little bit of a plot hole, I think, but there we go. The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. There was no longer any room for doubt. Hachi found himself facing a sad and painful truth. Why? Why? With an anguished scream, Hachi punched the wall as hard as he could. But his fist still didn't hurt as much as his heart. Dad. Why? So, Mr. Endo is in on the conspiracy. To be continued. Whoa! That's savage. Quite savage. Alright. Yikes. Imagine. Alright, so who we got next? We have Osawa, we have Maria, we unlocked Minorikawa, Kano. We have everybody, really, we have to go through, so, let's stick with the guys whose stories we were already on. So let's continue with Kano. Yeah, we already read all this, which unfortunately we can't skip. That's interesting. Wait a minute. This was oh. Okay, hang on. Let's jump forward. The phone call from Todd. Because we still got that going on. Yeah. I'm still wondering why Kanan and Stanley were at that hospital. Like, what put them there? Was Stanley there to, like, warn them about the virus? But then why would Kanan be there? Is Kanan following Stanley? She does seem to suspect him as being Alphard, but it's hard to say. Like, that would make sense that she's trying to confirm if he's Alphard or not. So, yeah, so now we know, Stanley had wired in. And then, so we're going to go do this now that we don't have Minorikawa in the way. So we can see what's going to happen with Kano when he confronts Tatno on the top of the building without thinking someone's about to commit suicide. Alright. Here we go. It is nice to confirm that Tatno is the man with the cane who's been following them. So he is working with Achi's dad to kill Hitomi so that they can use her heart for Suzune. But, I mean, I get why Achi's dad wants that. I mean, it's horrible, but that's what he wants, and he's trying to get. But why does Tatno want to kill Hitomi? That's what I'm kind of confused about. Alright, here we go. So we got this. So we got that, yeah. So there's Maria. She looked very much like Hitomi Osawa. A surge of frustration rushed through Kano. Detective Tatno, what is the meaning of this? Kano fought to remain calm. He felt like he was on the verge of falling to pieces. Bring me Hitomi Osawa and I'll let this girl go. Why? What do you need Hitomi for? But Tatno's only answer was an icy stare. This isn't like you. It's so weird. The Detective Tatno, why no? Who you know? Tatno cut him off. What do you know about me? I know what sort of detective you are, sir. Because I've modeled myself after you for my whole career. The older man's expression remained stony. Don't you remember? Kano went on. A time when you risked your life to talk down that man and barricaded himself inside the office? Ever since then, you've been my... Tatno interrupted him with a sudden burst of laughter. You really are gullible, you know that? You only see things the way you want to see them. What do you mean by that? The truth is, I didn't even care if I died doing what I did. That's why I doused myself in gasoline. Tatno's voice had gone low and quiet. That was no display of heroics. It was more tempted to suicide than anything else. I wasn't thinking about the other people still inside the building. It was just a coincidence things turned out the way they did. So then if you made a single misstep, then everyone in that building might well have burned to death. You're lying. That can't be true. Kano shook his head insistently. I don't have time for this conversation. Kano pressed the barrel of his gun to Maria's head. If you don't bring Hitomi Osawa to me, believe me, I'll blow her brains out. Please, stop this, Kano shouted. But there was no hesitation in Tatno's eyes. He looked like he really would shoot Maria if Kano didn't do as he asked. Hurry up. Bring Hitomi to me. Can't you at least tell me what's going on? Go now, or so help me, I'll shoot. Gonna do his own gun for his jacket. I know you, Detective Tatno. I know there's some meaning behind all this. Those words came out as an imploring croak. You think you can shoot me? Tatno spat. Letting I'll cover one go free. Taking Maria hostage. This has to mean something. Sweat made Kano's hands slick when he clenched his gun. I asked if you think you can shoot me. I've always looked up to you. You were the sort of detective I wanted to become. Kano's view of Tatno began to blur as tears welled in his eyes. Can you shoot me, Kano? I can. Even as he cried, Kano stood resolutely, doing his best to stare down the older man. He set his finger squarely on the trigger and pointed his gun at Tatno's forehead. Suddenly, the piercing stare vanished from the other detective's eyes. I've got to give you full marks for that, Kano. Tatno smiled thinly. I'll tell you then. I'll tell you why I'm doing this. Uh-oh. Here comes exposition. It all happened 17 years ago. A meth addict had assaulted someone in Shibuya. Tatno was questioning people around Dogenzaka in search of the perp. He happened to pass by Endo Electronics. Oh hey, Tatno! It was Katone Endo, clad in pristine white. Clutched to her breast was her daughter Suzune, only a few months old. It's been a long time, Katone said. She flashed a tiny smile. Yes, it has, Tatno replied with a clumsy smile of his own. Are you on the job? Yes, I am. Katone recoiled slightly at the dour look on Tatno's face. Is something the matter? There's an armed criminal hiding out somewhere in the area. What? I wouldn't leave the shop for a while if you can avoid it, but I have to go to the bank to deposit some money. Surely you can have Daisuke go do it. He's away on a repair job and hasn't come back yet. Tatno let out a one-note sigh. I see. Daisuke still does things his own way. Alright, let me escort you to the bank. You mean it? I'd feel a lot safer having you with me. Katone flashed him a smile so wide, Tatno thought he might lose himself in it. Tatno, Katone, and Daisuke were childhood friends, and had gone to school together up through high school. Tatno and Daisuke were always clowning around together. Katone was always there alongside them, laughing. It had been quite some time since he'd gotten to walk along Dogenzaka with Katone. How have you been lately? Well, the newborn to look after, it's been pretty hectic, but there's never a dull moment. Things have been good. I'm glad to hear it. Katone was always as bright as a sunflower. Sometimes Tatno managed to convince himself that just the sight of her was enough. Outside the bank, Katone held Suzune out to him. Tatno received the baby with an anxious frown. What's with the face? I'm not good with babies. I haven't held one very often. Oh, you'll be fine. Don't worry. Just hold on to her for a minute while I take care of things inside. Alright. He held the baby gingerly like it was a bomb that might explode at any moment. Katone chuckled softly. Suzune stirred and squirmed in Tatno's arms. She kind of has Katone's eyes, he thought. It was strange, the sensation of holding a child. She was so soft and light, and yet such a real and responsive presence. The faint warmth of her body warmed Tatno inwardly in turn. Katone returned after making her deposit. They strolled to a nearby park, Suzune back in her mother's arms. Do you have any plans for marriage, Tatno? I haven't thought about it. Work has me pretty busy. That's just an excuse, Katone said. If there really were some woman you wanted to marry, you wouldn't let work stop you. Then I suppose it's because there hasn't been anyone I felt that way about. Really? Nobody? This whole time? Yeah, really. I see. But still, seeing the two of you like this, it makes me realize how nice having a family could be. Tatno peered deeply into Suzune's face. Well, if it ain't Tatno, he looked up as a cheery voice got into the conversation. It was Daisuke. What are you doing here? He asked his wife. I could ask you the same question. Come on, give me a break. I've come to make the deposit for the client. In that case, no need to worry. I just took care of it myself. I thought you'd forgotten about it. Huh? Really? Katone smiled as Daisuke reached down and carefully lifted Suzune in his arms. Beaming happily at his daughter, he nuzzled up against her tiny cheek. Daisuke, long time no see. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing well for yourself, Tatano. They walked side by side. Daisuke proudly showed off Suzune's drowsing face. What do you think? Adorable, isn't she? Yeah. Luckily she doesn't have your looks. Hey, now. Bad-mouthing me the same as ever, huh? Some things hadn't changed since high school. Why not drop by our place for a bit? Daisuke offered. Sorry, I'm in the middle of a job, actually. Tatano turned to glance at Katone. An instant later, Daisuke screamed, Katone! The man had come up behind his throat and now held a kitchen knife. Behind his wife, and now held a kitchen knife to her throat. Katone stood stiffly, frozen in terror. Let her go. Tatano took a step toward the man. The slightly upturned eyes, the close-cropped hair, the thin mustache, all the details matched the description. This had to be the man Tatano was after. Shut your damn mouth. You want to try and kill me, huh? This lady here wants to try and kill me. The man was babbling nonsense. The reports said the suspect was a tweaker. Right now, his mind was probably a complete mess from meth withdrawal. Left unchecked, there was no telling what he might do. Tatano shoved Daisuke behind him and drew his gun from his jacket. Wait, don't shoot! You'll hit Katone! But Tatano ignored Daisuke's shouts and trained his gun on the perp's shoulder. He was confident in his marksmanship. He'd never miss at this range. Tatano, please, back down! Daisuke pleaded. Suzune still clutched in his arms. I beg you! I can't. Tatano hissed under his breath. This isn't someone we can reason with. The assailant began waving his knife about. He could stab it into Katone at any moment. Tatano had to take the shot now. He aimed for the shoulder of the arm. The man held his knife in. Tatane, stop! Daisuke shouted. Don't do this! For a brief moment, Tatano's eyes met Katone's. He thought he saw her give a tiny nod. Don't shoot! Ooh, another video. Oh boy. It was all over in an instant. By the time Tatano had the perp subdued, Katone's white shirt was soaked through with red. With Katone's death, so too died Tatano's heart. Whatever feelings had lived inside him had been reduced to cinders, leaving only a never-ending need to atone. Countless times he thought of ending his life in order to make things up to Daisuke and his children. The only reason he didn't go through with it was that he knew death would be the easy way out, and so he'd stayed on as a detective. He could carry the weight of his sins with him for as long as he lived. This was the sentence Tatano gave himself. "15 years had passed since Katone's death. Had begun to visit her grave for the first time. He was standing by the grave marker with his hands clasped when someone called out to him from behind. Excuse me. A slender young girl stood there, flowers in hand. Tatano instantly recognized her, Suzune. She looked just like Katone had back in her high school days. Did you know my mother? She asked. Yes, we were classmates a long time ago. Oh, really? Thank you so much for coming. Suzune gave a slight bow, then gazed up at Tatano with her big bright eyes. You look just like her. Tatano struggled to hold back the tears. He felt as if Katone stood before him, returned to life. My father tells me the same thing all the time. I'm sure once you're all grown up, you'll be just as beautiful as she was. A forlorn smile came to Suzune's face. Once I'm grown up, well, I don't think that's going to happen. I guess I really do have a lot in common with my mother, including the part where I'm going to die young. Don't be ridiculous, Tatano exclaimed. Why would you say such a horrible thing? Suzune took a step backward, looking shocked to be rebuked by a stranger. My apologies, he said hurriedly. I didn't mean to startle you. No, it's alright, Suzune murmured, clutching the flowers close. Honestly, it's not something I like to talk about myself, but I'm sick. There's not really anything I can do to change it. Sick. I have a heart condition. Heart condition, a generic expression for illnesses pertaining to the heart, also referred to as heart disease, includes things like heart failure, valvular heart disease, and so forth. A transplant is the only thing that could help me, but my blood type is a little bit weird, and it doesn't look like they'll be able to find me a compatible donor. The immune system exists to get rid of foreign substances in the body. Often a patient's immune system will attack a transplanted organ, which can result in the organ failing or functioning properly. To mitigate the risk of rejection, it is preferable for the donor and the recipient to have matching body tissue. In the case of a heart transplant, characteristics such as blood type and presensitized antibodies, human leukocyte antigens, must be screened ahead of time. Then, bowing her head, Suzune stepped in front of the gravestone and clasped her hands in silence. Tatna felt a wrenching pain inside him, as if Katone were being taken from him all over again. If there really was a god, why would he do such dreadful things? Is there nothing I can do? He nearly lamented out loud. I'll do anything. Suzune, I'll do whatever I have to in order to save you. Tatno clenched his fist as he stared at the grave. Tell me, Katone, what can I possibly do for your daughter? Please tell me. Please. And so the months rolled on. Everything changed just after 10 o'clock that morning. Tatna was on the stakeout when his cell phone rang. He glanced at the call display inside Daisuke Endo's name. He hadn't heard from Daisuke in years now. Fearing that something had happened to Suzune, Tatno answered the cell call despite his current tense circumstances. At once he heard Daisuke wailing. Suzune had a seizure. She might not come back from this one. Tatno's terrible suspicions had been right on the mark. He felt himself growing weak. Please, Daisuke exclaimed. You need to shoot that girl you're with, that Hitomi Osawa. You need to shoot her in the head. If we have her heart, we can save Suzune. At first, Tatno couldn't make sense of what Daisuke was saying. Hurry up and shoot. Shoot her, please. Hitomi Osawa has the Bombay blood type. Wait, hold on, Tatno said, keeping his voice low. You want me to kill Hitomi Osawa? Why? He quickly scanned the area. Daisuke, are you nearby? Wait, where are you? Don't worry about that. If you can just render her brain dead, we'll be able to transplant her heart to Suzune. The term brain dead refers to a state where the entire brain, including the brainstem, is beyond any recovery. In Japan, brain death is defined by Article 6 of the Act on Organ Transplantation, which states that brain death can only be declared with the goal of authorizing a transplant, and is subject to the judgment of at least 2 doctors, inspecting the patient according to a preset process, at least 6 hours apart. Shooting someone in the head didn't necessarily guarantee they'd wind up brain dead. And even assuming it did, if Tatno shot the Osawa girl here, in the middle of the scramble, it would cause a giant incident. By the time the autopsy was completed, the window for a heart transplant would surely have passed. Tatno, shoot her, please. Daisuke, I can't. You know I can't do that. Hurry! It was like his old friend wasn't even listening to him. Look, even if she did wind up brain dead, they wouldn't be able to perform a transplant. But Daisuke had kept on shouting, It's fine! It'll be fine! I'll make the transplant work somehow! You'll make it work. Even knowing how ridiculous that was, part of Tatno wanted to know what he had in mind, if anything. I finally found it. I found something we can do for Suzune. Please, help me! Help her! Tatno understood Daisuke's feelings painfully well. To be helpless, to stop the suffering of someone you loved. Nothing in the world hurt as much as that. I want to save Suzune, Tatno. This is the one thing I will ever ask of you. Tatno could hear a choked weeping from the other end of the line, and at that sound, something inside him shifted. Yes, Daisuke was right. The likelihood of a transplant happening wasn't the issue. What mattered was that right now he could take action. He could do something for Suzune. He mustered up his resolve, feeling the doubt lift from his heart. For Suzune. For the daughter of the woman he'd loved. Tatno checked the gun tucked inside his jacket. then slowly began making his way through the crowd toward Hitomi. And so that's where the chase started. Now you know why we're here. Tatno gestured subtly with his gun, its barrel still pressed against Maria's temple. Kano's own gun wavered in his hands. He was crying inside. There was nothing else he wanted to hear from Tatno now. And now he was sure of one thing. Words were never going to stop this man. Kano, Tatno said. At my age, I've seen all sorts of young detectives come and go. He fixed his lonesome gaze on Kano. And you're about the worst of the lot. Whenever it's time to take action, you immediately do something reckless. Do you know how many formal apologies I've had to write because of you? Kano let out a heavy sigh. But you know, Kano, because of the way you've looked up to me, you've saved me. And that's the truth. He sounded like a man speaking his last words. Now come on, see if you can stop me. He pressed the gun harder against Maria's temple. Kano took aim at his former hero's head. Detective Tatno! His finger wavered on the trigger. Shoot him. You have to shoot him. If you don't shoot him, Maria is going to die. He tried desperately to convince himself. I am going to stop you. Tatno looked him coldly in the eye. Do it then. Shoot me. Kano stared right back. He tightened his finger on the trigger. Right! To be continued. Oh boy. Wow. Well, that got heavy. Alright. So, before we jump back into Minorikawa's story, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. And I am back. Man, kind of could use Yanagishita showing up. Wonder where he went anyway. Alright, so let's pop into Stumbling Man. Oh yeah, that's right. Hey. Okay, let's do this. We'll do that because I think that maybe makes things okay. So we'll just skip through this scene. So this should make us not run over Achi. assuming... I'm curious about Maria's story here. Like, how are they going to handle Maria's story? So he goes and gets his weapon. And he's going to jump in the taxi. Yep, talking about the explosion, talking about, because he still thinks Toyama died and it wasn't Mr. Tanaka. Tired, sir. Yep. And there we go. Crisis averted. The taxi stopped outside of Heaven Publishing. Minoru Kawa left a 1,000 yen bill on the seat and exited the cab. Ah, yes, sir. He was stumbling his way toward the building when someone called out to him. Mr. Minoru Kawa, For a moment, Minoru Kawa didn't recognize the man now idling a sedan at the curb, but when he took a closer look, he realized it was Kenji Osawa. Oh, Mr. Osawa. Sorry, but I haven't been able to look into that thing you asked about yet. I see. That's quite all right. Osawa looked pale and haggard. Minoru Kawa's reporter sense started tingling. This guy is the key to something. He recalled what he'd heard the detective and his buddy talking about back at the scene of the explosion. Roughly 8 hours ago, they infected Maria Osawa with the UA virus. If we don't administer Kenji Osawa's antiviral before she develops symptoms... You're caught up in something big, aren't you? How do you know that? Because, the reporter said simply, I'm Minoru Kawa. Osawa rolled his eyes. Well, that'll make this simpler, I guess. Get in. I'll tell you everything. Minoru Kawa hesitated. This might be his big chance to land a beyond incredible scoop. And it felt like it was too late to matter. Still, landing a major story, selling out an issue of 4-star General Gossip, and putting Heaven Publishing on the road to solvency, all that was the least he could do in Toyama's memory. You don't drop a story until you have what you need. Maybe it was too late to save Toyama, but Minoru Kawa got in the car. Osawa's tale was beyond anything Minoru Kawa had imagined. So they send you threatening emails, devise a plan to kidnap your daughter in order to get the antiviral, and now that that's failed, they're turning to bioterrorism? Finally, Minoru Kawa was able to flesh out the story beyond the conversation he'd overheard earlier. And as he did, he could feel a growing sense of exhilaration. So basically, they're now effectively holding all the people in Shibuya hostage and demanding the antiviral. Is that it? Before Osawa could answer, a new idea occurred to Minoru Kawa. Wait, hold on. Why didn't they just start by holding the whole city hostage? Why did they need to go through all the trouble of kidnapping your daughter? I don't know, Osawa said, shaking his head. Perhaps they wanted the ransom money? For a mere 50 million yen? I can't imagine international terrorists bothering for that much. You can't know how terrorists think, Osawa spat. Let's just assume, though. Could there be some other reason they abducted your daughter? Osawa didn't reply. He was probably too preoccupied with finding a way to save his infected daughter to think about anything else. Still, something about the course of events didn't quite add up to Minoru Kawa. But whatever the case, if the criminals were after this antiviral, then sticking with Osawa ought to bring him closer to the truth. Minoru Kawa was still mulling that over when they arrived at the laboratory. The two men hopped out of the car and were immediately rushed by a pair of security guards who subdued them in a matter of moments. Hey! Minoru Kawa protested. What the hell is this? Unhand me! Osawa yelled. I'm Kenji Osawa! This is my lab! But evidently that didn't matter to the guards. Another man emerged from the building. He and Osawa exchanged a few brief words. Judging from the tone of the conversation, this was someone who outranked Osawa at the company. Take him away. As the newcomer looked on, the guards dragged Osawa into the building. Hey! Minorukawa shouted at the man as he began to walk away. Don't you know what's going to happen to Shibuya? Don't you care? If you just stand by and let the people of the city die, Akoshi Pharmaceutical is going to be held responsible. The man stopped in his tracks. And if that happens, you'll be ruined personally, too, Minorukawa added. You know I'm right. That will be up for the police to decide. You're going to regret this. Don't be a fool. Minorukawa's resolve was unwavering. His pen would mete out justice. He might have come close to forgetting what he once stood for, but now the old fire was back. I see. It seems this isn't something to leave unchecked. The man gestured with his jaw. Take him as well. More security guards surrounded Minorukawa. Hey, stop it! Let me go! But though he struggled fiercely, there was no escape. Once he was dragged through those laboratory doors, Minorukawa never wrote another article again. Okay. Bad end. Detained at the lab. Minorukawa accompanied Osawa to the lab, but there was no getting past the security guards, and if even Osawa can't get in his own lab, there is no real reason to go there. It's Osawa who needs to decide a different course of action here. Okay, well, we can do that. I don't want to know how people feel. All I want to know is what viruses feel. I prefer viruses because they make no move to encroach on me from the other side of my microscope. They leave me free to let my thoughts wander as I wish. And while it may be true, to say I understand viruses, I have never been able to understand my fellow humans. I don't know them. I don't know a single fundamental thing about them. With Tanaka dead, trying to use the backup passwords for the fingerprint scanner had become a hopeless endeavor. The only remaining means of getting entry to the storage area was to issue an emergency unlock request to the electronic lock manufacturer. And in order to do that, they needed approval from the 6 members of the board of directors. Turning to his study, Osawa called Makino's personal cell phone. What is it? Makino said gruffly as soon as he picked up. Osawa informed him of the situation, including Tanaka's death and the fact that Maria was infected. The news left Makino at a loss for words. Please, Osawa begged. You need to hold an emergency board meeting. Makino was silent for a few moments. I'm afraid I can't do that. Why not? Are we just going to sit by and let my daughter die? Osawa raged. And not just her. If Maria goes symptomatic. That was only an if, but Osawa was reluctant to put his fear into words. If she goes symptomatic, the Uwa virus will sweep through all of Tokyo. I realize that, Makino replied, but one of the board members is overseas on business. Holding a meeting is impossible. Despite the gravity of the situation, he sounded astoundingly nonchalant. Osawa couldn't back down now. There must be some other option, like a web conference or something. That doesn't help us if we can't get in touch with him, Makino huffed. He went missing a few days ago in the middle of his business trip. The head of Akoshi Pharmaceuticals' New York branch has been missing since April 25th, 9 p.m. local time. There have been no demands for a ransom, and so the New York Police Department is investigating the possibility of some other form of foul play. Osawa is almost too appalled to be angry. That's the most ridiculous lie I've ever heard. Would you like to speak to my on-site contact if you don't believe me? This was like arguing with a child. If Makino was deliberately working against him, he'd never know if this disappearance was real or not. In that case, can you please appoint a representative in his stead? Osawa pleaded. Selecting a representative is a complicated process. Even if we started right now, it would take until sometime tomorrow afternoon to complete. Tomorrow afternoon? By then it'd be too late for any of this to matter. Sir, you can't see how absurd the things you're saying are? What would you have me do? Makino barked. These are the realities of corporate politics. I understand, sir. You will do nothing for my daughter. That's what you're saying. That's not what I'm saying, Makino replied. Look, I'll see what I can do to appoint a representative more quickly. He hung up. His tone had suggested that waiting for an appointee wouldn't be a terribly helpful prospect. I have no more allies, Osawa thought. All I have left now are foes. Yeah, going to get the antiviral was a bad idea, so we'll do this one. Still, he'd just have to take Makino at his word. Right now, that was his only course of action. Osawa sat down in front of his computer and quietly closed his eyes. If only I could just go to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning and find all of this resolved. All I'm asking for is a miracle. But he knew reality would never be so kind. He could only hold his eyes shut as long as he wanted, and it wouldn't make this hopeless situation go away. He felt the anxiety welling up inside him until it seemed like he was going to explode. Needing a distraction from his hopelessness, Osawa opened up Ayanet. He knew this was mere escapism, but he couldn't just sit and do nothing while waiting for Makino to call back. He posted a new topic with the title Aya Fortune Teller. I tried the Aya Fortune Teller. My results basically said I was a bad person who can't connect to the people around me. And you know what? That's exactly right. I'm only interested in my own little world. That's probably why my wife and my assistant at work got so fed up with me. It's the same with my two daughters. What sort of things are they interested in? Do they have a lot of friends? What are their aspirations for the future? I don't know any of it. I don't know any of those things. It never even occurred to me to find out. I am such a terrible father. Osawa's fingers ceased their tapping on the keyboard as he thought back to when Maria and Itomi were younger. Daddy, Daddy! The two girls would follow him around like a pair of puppies. Their father was their everything. That much was clear just by looking at their faces. He had felt a ticklish giddiness at having his girls cling to him, so he'd never felt anything like that in his life. But there were times where he also found it tiresome. I am sick of being the person I am. There's nothing I can do about that, though. I'm sure it's far too late for me to change. He poured out all of his negative emotions into his post. It felt like stream of consciousness drivel, but he didn't hesitate to write it down all the same. He wanted other people to know what a miserable excuse for a human being he was. At last, when he couldn't think of anything else to add, he posted his bitter confession to the forum. He was staring numbly at the monitor when he heard a furious shout from the next room. You have got to be kidding me! It was Kajiwara, and Osawa had never heard him so angry. Osawa headed in the living room and found Kajiwara embroiled in a vehement argument with the other detectives. I don't care what HQ's policy is. I will not just quietly go along with this. Kajiwara had already screamed himself red in the face. You're out of line, snapped one MPD detective. Kichi Sawatari with the Metropolitan Police Department. First Criminal Investigation Section. Having heard of Kajiwara's past deeds from friends at the Shibuya Precinct, he recommended that to his boss that Kajiwara be assigned to the investigation at the Osamu residence. After seeing the detective's interaction with Osawa, he is confident that his recommendation was in the right. However, given the circumstances, he can't help but take a cold stance towards Kajiwara. Hold your tongue. I don't care if I'm out of line. You may have talent, I'll give you that, the detective said. But you're a precinct detective, and this isn't your jurisdiction. It's not your place to question orders from higher up. Wait, Osawa thought. Kajiwara really is a real detective, after all? Go on. Explain the situation to Mr. Osawa. Kajiwara bit his lip in frustration at the other detective's order. Very well, he said. But before he could say more, Osawa noticed that the police equipment had all been cleared off the table. Hold up, Osawa said. What's going on? Has something happened? Allow me to explain, sir, Kajiwara said. His bitterness showed plainly on his face. We've been recalled, sir. The MPD has established a security force headed by members of its Public Security Bureau to deal with the bioterrorist threat. Because the kidnapping task force has not yet found Maria, and she is infected with the virus, the task force personnel have instead been absorbed into the security force and continue their work under its direction. Osawa narrowed his eyes, fighting to keep the confusion from his face. What do you mean by that? He was shaking, terrified to have his suspicions confirmed. I'm truly sorry, sir, for having been unable to help you. Kajiwara gave a deep sigh and solemn bow. But Maria? What's going to happen to Maria? Another unit has been tasked with bringing your daughter into custody, sir. That much at least Osawa could process. You're going to place her under quarantine, aren't you? Kajiwara's lips stiffened, but he nodded, in order to minimize the spread of the virus so unfold. No! Osawa cried. You can't do that! If you do, there won't be any way to save her. His head spun. Please, I beg of you. You need to get Maria to me. I might be able to save her. When Kajiwara didn't respond, he turned to the other detectives. Please! Don't... You can't place Maria under quarantine. But the detectives' only answer was to avert their eyes. Why are you all ignoring me? Please, you have to listen. If you bring her to me, I can figure something out. I know I can. He plunked himself down on the floor, yelling and flailing his arms like a child throwing a tantrum. The detectives exchanged sullen looks with one another, and then walked off and left him there. He knew he must be a sorry sight, but nevertheless, he kept shouting after them. Please, don't stand by and let my daughter die. Only Kajiwara remained with him in the living room. I'm sorry, sir. This was beyond my ability to stop. He gave another apologetic bow. Osawa felt suddenly deflated. No, you've done a fine job, Detective Kajiwara. It's me who should be sorry. I've made such a disgraceful display of myself. That's not true, sir. In fact, I'm deeply moved. I can tell you how much Maria must mean to you. Osawa shook his head. If I'd really been thinking about Maria, I would have made an effort to work with you detectives more. That was all just self-absorbed shouting. A moment of emotional selfishness. And yet, as a result, you convinced me to stay here with you. Kajiwara proceeded to pull out his phone and put in a request with the task force headquarters to remain at the Osawa residence. He got into a heated spat with his commanding officer, but ultimately received permission to stay on as a police liaison with Osawa. Well, the detective said when he hung up, you see, there are some people who are legitimately moved by a parental display of emotion. Even if I'm not certain that I can do very much in staying here with you. That's not true, Osawa replied. There's plenty you can help me with. He looked into Kajiwara's face and smiled. For instance. You find things that have gone missing. That fried egg on rice you made me was delicious. I can have a banana whenever I want. Let's do this one. You find things that have gone missing. Huh, like the plane ticket, you mean? Kajiwara gave a bashful smile. Yes, I'd never have found it if you hadn't been here, Detective. Well, like they say, you can never find something when you're looking for it. Then a hint of sadness came to Kajiwara's eyes, and his voice grew quieter. My daughter. She had this little toy ring that she loved, and she lost it in her house somewhere. I didn't realize you had a daughter, Detective. She just started grade school this year. Really? She must be adorable. I don't get to see her as much as I'd like. A lonely sort of smile crossed Kajiwara's face. Why is that? Doing this job caused me to neglect my family. Finally, about 2 years ago, my wife hit me with the divorce paperwork. I wanted to be able to keep our daughter with me, but... well, the law tends to favor the mother when it comes to custody issues. The detective pulled 2 bars of chocolate from his pocket. Osawa accepted one but said nothing. The toy ring she lost, I bought it for her as a birthday present. She loved it so much, she cried and cried when it was gone. I looked all over for it. The detective bit into his own chocolate bar with a soft snap. So then later, this toy ring, I found it after my wife took our daughter away. Do you know where it was? Osawa shook his head slightly. Under my daughter's mattress. Fell out when the bed was being taken out of her room. Isn't that funny? It was somewhere I never would have found it if she'd stayed. Another sad smile came to Kajiwara's face before he went on. I guess there wasn't much point, though. Finding it after she was gone. The man had lost his daughter. Osawa couldn't help but sympathize. Here was someone he could really talk to. He was sure of that much now. Detective, I apologize. I've kept things from you because I was worried that they involved classified corporate information. Oh? Kajiwara's eyes glimmered with interest. Earlier today, I received some emails. They could be pertinent to the case. Would you mind letting me see them? Osawa shook his head. On the contrary. Back in front of his computer, Osawa saw that IONET was still open. Pretty Honey had responded to his forum post. Okay, one moment, just let me read this. One moment, just let me read this. Osawa read the response. I got that same result. Do you really think it's too late? Don't give up hope. Hang in there. It's never too late. Every family has its share of problems. Like, you'll never find one that doesn't, I'm sure. When it comes to family, there's no such thing as game over. So don't let it get you down, Julie. Besides, I did learn one thing from reading your post. In the end, a father's happiness is his daughter's happiness. Kajiwara peered into the monitor. A young girl is posting to a forum for people 40 and over? It's Pretty Honey. She always replies to my threads. The detective furrowed his brow. I see. Is something the matter? No, that last line there just has me curious is all. A young girl writing something like that. Well, that's neither here nor there right now. Let me see those emails, if you would. Osawa opened his email. He pulled up the images of the human testing on the monitor. What is this? Kajiwara stared at the monitor as if unable to look away. These are images from unauthorized clinical testing of an antiviral drug I developed carried out by my company without my knowledge. Images of... I'm sorry, what was that? The detective frowned at the unfamiliar terminology. In simple terms, the antiviral is a wonder drug to combat the UA virus. Hold on. Maria is infected with the UA virus, isn't that right? Yes. UA is a species of virus discovered in South Africa relatively recently. Roughly 12 hours after infection, patients develop a cough, then a fever, and then begin vomiting, and ultimately begin to bleed uncontrollably from all over, resulting in death. The mortality rate is... Osawa was reluctant to say it. Kajiwara held his breath, waiting. It's nearly 100%. Kajiwara shuddered. But wait, he said after a moment. If you have this wonder drug, then Maria... Osawa shook his head. Without Tanaka, I have no means of getting it out of the lab. Kajiwara's frown deepened. I see. It may not be much to go on, but I think we can put together at least one piece of our little mystery here. A mystery, something difficult or impossible to explain, an enigma. You see plenty of books titled The Mystery of Such and Such and The Secret of Whatever on bookstore shelves, but when you read them, you're invariably disappointed by the mystery not being that mysterious after all. Pardon me one moment. Kajiwara inspected the email address of the sender, A, and brought up the mail header. You don't see email addresses like this much. It's seemingly from a foreign country, but that may be fake. You can tell that just from the email? The detective flashed a little grin. Take a look here. So if we do just this, and then this... His fingers flew over the keyboard, calling up the header details, singling out the received from field. This set of 4 numbers at the bottom is the sender's IP address. Think of it as an ordinarily hidden location marker of sorts. As he spoke, the detective pulled up a website called IP Station. He copied and pasted the set of 4 numbers and pressed the enter key. The monitor showed the name of the provider, connection method, and other such details. Provider, a vendor that provides an internet connection service. A typical internet connection requires a dedicated line. Customers who do not already have one must make a contract for one with the provider. When the provider establishes your connection to the internet, you are assigned an identifying number called an IP address. Osawa couldn't make heads or tails of most of it, but one thing drew his eye. Access point, Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. Kajiwara went into the email program's options and checked the server info for Osawa's connection. A deep furrow was formed in his forehead. This is the same provider that you use, Mr. Osawa. What does that mean? What kind of internet connection do you have here at your house? What sort? Well, it's plugged in over there, but... Osawa pointed at the router. Does everyone in your family use that same line? Yes, I think so. Kajiwara opened up a command prompt and typed ipconfig. Oh my goodness, Kajiwara is a computer genius. A literal prompt for users to issue computer control commands via keyboard instead of mouse. Also frequently used to refer to the window or program allowing for such. Okay, so if the same numbers we saw before pop up here, that's a bad sign. Oh? Osawa stared at the monitor. Kajiwara pressed enter, and a black window appeared and a white alphanumeric characters appeared. What the heck? Kajiwara muttered under his breath. Wait, what's going on? Osawa asked. Explain simply so that I can understand. Faking an email address is simple enough, but the typical person wouldn't be able to fake an IP. It's very likely that these emails were sent from another computer inside this house. Osawa had to stifle a gasp. The emails had been sent from his own house around 11 o'clock that morning. Since Osawa hadn't sent them himself, that left only one possible culprit. Suddenly his phone rang, nearly startling him out of his seat. Makino's name showed on the incoming call display. Osawa quickly picked up. Is there an update on the emergency board meeting? He blurted. Makino's voice was quiet and subdued. I tried pulling whatever strings I could, but to no avail. I'm afraid holding a board meeting today just won't be possible. The phone fell from Osawa's hand. His only possible means of saving Maria was now gone. To be continued. Okay, what have we got next? So let's see, whose stories we have to finish here. Maria, we haven't even started. Achi is done. He's done. Kano's done. And then we have to do Minorikawa. So let's finish up Minorikawa. It's always weird we have to, like, select this multiple times. Is it fun? Oh wait, I hit the wrong button, darn it. Okay, there we go. There we go. And we've had to skip this scene multiple times now. It's pretty annoying. Alright, so did that unlock the scenes yet? Nope. That's annoying. Probably have to go to till the cabbie shows up. Nope. My goodness. Ride. Now? Still not. Alright. This way. Yep. So Minoru doesn't get involved in Osawa's story yet, it seems. Sir, Derby called after him. Minoru turned back around. Kimazuka was leaning out the window to point at him. It isn't called work because it's fun, sir. The day will be over soon enough. Just hang in there a little bit longer. The driver finished with a knowing grin. Minoru cracked a ghost of a smile. Maybe his spirits had been lifted just a tiny bit. Thank you, he replied. You're a true friend of the working man. He waved half-heartedly and headed into the building. Mr. Mino! Chiki threw herself at him as soon as he opened the door to the editing office. News of the explosion was playing on the television. Minoru marched straight to his desk and opened up his laptop. While it booted up, he tried to get a handle on the current situation. Where are the folks from the loan company? He asked. They're here, Chiki said. I have them waiting downstairs. Do they know Toyama's dead? I'm sorry, I kind of let that slip. What about Hana? I'm not sure. I haven't heard from her since she called earlier. With a tiny sigh, Minoru started typing in his laptop. By some miracle, his 6 pages of the copy were nearly wrapped up. Still, he needed to do whatever it took to see this job through to the end. That was serve as his final tribute to Toyama's memory. He loaded his copy into the DTP software in order to set the layout. Bit by bit, actual magazine articles began to take shape. Then the editing department door swung open. Hey! Snarled the young man who barged in first. He kicked over a stack of books. How long you gonna keep us waiting, huh? Honestly, Sagawa, must you be so rowdy? A middle-aged man stepped in alongside him. Are you Mr. Minoru Kawa, then? He added as his eyes fixed on the journalist. He got at his business card. A pleasure to meet you. I'm Asao Ozu from Takarada Financing, a black market firm that offers loans at an interest rate above what the law allows, well known for taking whatever steps necessary to collect what's owed. Its business card slogan, got bad credit but you need a loan? Call anytime. We'll put together a loan that suits your needs. My deepest sympathies about Mr. Toyama. However, I am afraid that we do need you to give us back the money we loaned. Despite his polite tone, the threat in his voice was plain. Look, next month's issue of 4-Star General Gossip is definitely coming out. Couldn't you please wait for repayment until we have the funds from those sales? Minoru asked. That was exactly what Toyama's plan had been, after all. Well, we certainly aren't monsters. If the magazine is going to be making you money, I wouldn't mind delaying another month. You really mean it? Shiki chirped. To clarify, that would be the case if Toyama was still alive. Releasing the next issue is still well and good, but with Toyama gone, so too is the company. That'll make full repayment of what we were owed impossible, I expect. Then what do you want us to do? Minoru asked coldly. But we just cut to the chase, growled the younger man Sagawa. Dig out your ears and listen up. Shiki recoiled in a panic, and Minoru held up an interposing hand. Knock it off, he said. You're scaring the young lady. A thin smile came to Ozu's face. All I want to know is where Mr. Toyama's daughter is. Yeah, that's right, Sagawa said. Tell us where the girl is. No way, Shiki squeaked in protest. Hana's just a little kid. She didn't have any responsibility to pay back the... Osawa didn't let her finish. We're aware of that. Nevertheless, we'd still like to know where she is. The law didn't matter right now. Guys like this had all sorts of ways of bringing money out of people. It was clear from the looks on their faces that Ozu and Sagawa had some wicked scheme up their sleeves. Unless, of course, you would prefer to take on Toyama's debts, Mr. Minorikawa. You are quite the accomplished reporter, after all. Take on his debts, huh? Minorikawa didn't know how much Toyama had borrowed, but it only took one look at those guys to tell him it was no small sum. How about it? Ozu asked. The way you land scoop after scoop, I'm sure you'll be able to repay us in full before you die. Minorikawa fiercely returned his stare. I'll consider it. Could you give me some time? Alright, I'll take on the debt. Or can't we just call it even? We'll do this. I'll consider it. Could you give me some time? Shiki went pale at Minorikawa's response. No! How did we think about taking their offer? She cried. Sagawa stepped in, drowning out. No, wait! We've waited long enough. Give us your answer now. Yes or no? What's it gonna be? Now. Just calm down, Ozu chided. He said he'd consider it. That's a step in the right direction. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Minorikawa? Yeah, sure. Then I suppose we can wait at least a little while longer. Minorikawa had hoped to put them off for several days at least, but it looked like that was going to happen. The two men from Takarada Financing plunked themselves down in the editing department's sofa. Mr. Mino, you're not actually going to take on that debt, are you? Shiki asked quietly. Minorikawa sat at his desk looking over the copy he'd written. That's none of your concern, he said. What I do need to know is how's your piece on those street interviews coming. But, I mean, those guys, they said it doesn't matter if the issue comes out or not. Don't be ridiculous. When a professional agrees to a job, they see it through to the end. Shiki took his point and scampered to grab the printout of her copy. Minorikawa gave it a quick once-over. He saw immediately that the piece was lacking in structure. He then read the article a second time, checking the finer details. Several off-theme sentences jumped out at him. This is no good. Rewrite it. He thrust the printout back to Chiiki. Yes, sir. She bowed her head and retreated to another desk. The TV was still on. A news broadcaster's voice suddenly broke through the silence, as well as Minorikawa's concentration. We're live on the scene now, where an explosion in Shibuya has... Minorikawa gazed blankly at the screen. He found his mind drifting to a particular memory of Toyama. The door looked like it might fall apart at any moment, but Minorikawa didn't care. He pounded on it as hard as he could. The Toyama nameplate popped off and fell onto the floor. It was hard to believe this dilapidated apartment was the home of a newspaper editor who'd worked his way up from reporter. Hey, Toyama! Get out here! At the sound of Minorikawa's angry shouting, other tenants on the floor poked their head out of their rooms to stare. He paid them no heed, continuing to call out. Eventually Toyama opened the door, dressed in his sweats and undershirt. Quiet down, you moron, he snapped. Come on in. I hear you tendered your letter of resignation at the paper. Minorikawa sat cross-legged at the tatami-covered floor. Tell me why. Toyama corked a lopsided grin. You want to know why I quit, huh? All right, lean in close. Minorikawa peered at him dubiously. Huh? Why? I don't want anyone ever hearing this. Resigned, Minorikawa leaned forward and turned his right ear toward Toyama. The man's warm breath against his cheek was pretty unsettling. At first he had trouble concentrating on Toyama's story, but when the older man got to the crux of the matter, he found himself listening with rapt attention. By the time Toyama finished, Minorikawa was unable to suppress his shock. You're starting your own publishing company? Not so loud, damn it. Toyama shushed him, with a finger to his lips. He looked around warily, as if there might be spies in his own apartment. Right, a publishing company? Minorikawa said again, more quietly this time. What are you doing for your distributor account? All booksellers were required to use a wholesale distributor to circulate their publications. To do business with such a distributor, a publisher needed a specialized distributor to account. They're not going to let a company with no track record open a new account with a distributor. I'm sure you must realize that. Toyama grinned, a proud gleam in his eyes. I know, that's why I bought one. You bought one? A ghost account, belonging to a publisher that went bankrupt. Distributor accounts could go for tens of millions of yen. There was no way Toyama could afford that on a severance pay alone. He must have taken out a loan in order to make the purchase. With the publishing industry in a slump nowadays, people just weren't buying books much anymore. Starting up a new publishing company was a beyond risky endeavor. And I've already decided a name for my company, Minorikawa. Toyama's face was positively beaming. Get this. Heaven Publishing. Heaven? That sounds fatalistic. The idea is that the people who work for me will feel like they're in paradise. For all this kvetching about keeping quiet, Toyama was now exclaiming pretty loudly himself. I mean, I can appreciate your willingness to take the risk, but surely your wife must have had objections, Minorikawa said. Toyama fell silent. He wouldn't open up the refrigerator. Minorikawa took a peek inside. The shelves were mournfully spare, holding little besides beer cans and drinking snacks. The missus left me, took her daughter with her. Those scant few words painted the picture clearly enough. Toyama grabbed a can of beer and tossed it to his guests. But no more sob stories, he went on. He briskly cracked open his own can of beer. Weak foam bubbled at the top. Cheers, Minorikawa, to Heaven Publishing's big debut. He cast everything aside and was striving for a new beginning. If the man braced himself for a challenge, it wasn't Minorikawa's place to tell him he was making a mistake. Even if it was an uphill battle, he had little chance of winning. Congrats, Mr. Toyama. Minorikawa pulled the tab on his beer can. Cheers! The two of them clacked their cans together. One year had passed since Toyama founded Heaven Publishing. Minorikawa poked his head into the editing office, a bag from the convenience store in hand. Hey boss, how's business? How does it look like it's doing? Toyama said amidst a veritable mountain of returned stock, his expression bleak. Bookstores do not purchase the books they sell, but rather take them on consignment. This allows them to return to the publisher any books that don't sell. The books were all bulky, non-fiction tomes, not exactly the sort to fly off the shelves. The man couldn't even muster a smile for their reunion. It's been like this for every non-fiction book we've put out. Wow, starting off with the bleak stuff, huh? Because things are bleak. The only thing that's selling is the gossip rag of ours. Minorikawa pulled some beer cans from his bag, handing one to Toyama. Toyama lifted an issue of 4-star general gossip from atop his desk. It was Heaven Publishing's one breadwinner, the only thing keeping the company afloat. But the gossip now seemed like it was buried in the bread of the publisher's non-fiction releases. I really did have higher aspirations than this, Toyama sighed, gazing in disappointment at the piles of unsold books. But here we are, with our gossip magazine as our only viable publication. The beleaguered bookseller chugged his beer. Daddy, I'm hungry. Minorikawa startled to hear a young child's voice. He turned around to see a little girl nestled between the stacks of returned stock. That's my daughter, Hana, Toyama said. It's complicated, but she's living with me now. I see. Minorikawa couldn't press for more details with Hana right there. In all likelihood, things with Toyama's ex-wife hadn't been going well. Come on, introduce yourself, Toyama said. This is one of Daddy's work friends. Hana turned to Minorikawa with a bright little grin. Hello, my name's Hana. I'm 6. You want some of this? Minorikawa held out a pack of dried squid he'd brought to go with the beers. Sure! Hana greedily stuffed her cheeks with the squid. Toyama flashed a sheepish grin. Do you like living with your daddy, Hana? Minorikawa asked, giving the girl's hair a gentle rustle. Uh-huh, I do. My daddy's amazing. He runs a company. Toyama let out a tiny, involuntary sob at his daughter's ready praise. I'll keep at it, Toyama said, looking into his daughter's smiling face. Hana is more important to me than any high aspirations I might have had. I'll keep shoveling out copies of the gossip, and at least make sure she's always got something good to eat. Daddy, this is really tasty. Hana held up the pouch of dried squid. Tears welled in Toyama's eyes. Next time I'll make sure she has some sashimi. It says something like this. Hey, what do you mean, something like this? Minorikawa grumbled. I'm the one who brought it. Toyama and his daughter laughed together. It was a heartwarming sight, Minorikawa thought, a father and his girl getting along so well. Toyama might have been a hard-hitting journalist, but when he came home at the end of the day, he was just daddy. It was only natural for the man as a father to put his child above anything else. After gorging herself on snacks, Hana fell asleep on the sofa, looking well and truly satisfied. You know, Minorikawa, Hana's happiness means more to me than my lofty artistic ideals ever could. Toyama kept his voice low as he regarded his daughter's sleeping face. And from that day forward, Heaven Publishing it shifted its focus to scandal rags with 4-star general gossip as its pillar. Had that been for good or for ill? Whatever the case, Toyama had abandoned his pride. Minorikawa had watched him become more and more of a miserable wretch. Minorukawa snapped back into the present as a sheaf of pages appeared in front of his face. Here you go, Chiaki said, reading in anxiety. Right. Minorukawa gave her a copy of closer read over and then thrust it back out. What'd you even fix? He asked. Could you please tell me what parts are wrong? She mumbled, hanging her head. What are you talking about? It's just, well, we don't have a lot of time here, so I figure if I just fix the parts that need fixing. Chiaki trailed off into an indistinct mutter. Is that always how you go about fixing your copy? Yes. Then you're never going to get any better. If someone tells you it's no good, you rewrite the whole thing from scratch. Just making fiddly tweaks here and there is what an amateur does. Chiaki dipped her head even deeper, cringing at the reprimand. Minorukawa let out a tiny sigh. Look, what I just told you, that's what Toyama told me when I was first starting out. There were times he'd have me do dozens of rewrites. At first I thought he was just pushing me around, but after rewriting things over and over I realized something. There are a whole lot of ways you can write about the same thing, and that's what helped me hone my skills as a writer. Chiaki raised her head back up. Oh wow, really? If you can get that, then stick with it. Write your submission deadline as close as you have to in order to write the best piece you can. Okay, I can do it. I will do it. Finally, Chiaki's face brightened with a smile. That's the spirit. The woman might have talent, but she hadn't realized it yet. She needed to be able to stick to an assignment, even when things got tough. If she didn't make that kind of resolve, she'd never make it as a freelancer. Oh, how touching, Ozu chimed in, applauding. I'm almost moved to tears. They'll make a movie of this for sure. See? We only had been acquainted with that sad sap Toyama. We never knew there was such an upstanding fellow here was so good at tough love. Minorukawa shot to his feet and pounded his fist on the desk. That's about enough from the peanut gallery. Hold your tongue, Sagawa snarled. His eyes shone with a vicious gleam. We're getting sick of waiting here. Sagawa, you really are a short-tempered guy, aren't you? Ozu clucked disapprovingly at his underling and slid a sheaf of paper onto Minorukawa's desk. Nevertheless, I'm afraid we do require a decision now. If you would just stamp here, we'll be on our way. Chiaki stared down at the document. Is this a bond of recognizance? Yeah, that's right. That's what you write when transferring a debt. Sagawa puffed himself up proudly. Minorukawa silently looked over the contract. You don't have a stamp. Gladly accept a signature as well, Ozu pointed out. Face it, pal, Sagawa added. If you don't hurry up and sign, we're never going to stop going after Toyama's daughter. Minorukawa snatched up a pen. Mr. Mino, you can't do this. Think about what you're doing, Chiaki shouted. If you go through with this, you'll just wind up like Mr. Toyama. I won't. Yes, you will. Just who the hell do you think I am? I'm Minorukawa, damn it. I'm gonna land so many scoops it will make your head spin. I'm gonna pay back this debt and rebuild Heaven Publishing. But why would you take such a risk? Chiaki sobbed. Minorukawa lowered his voice. Because I owe him so much. I can't stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Aha! Before Minorukawa could sign, Sagawa startled him with a sudden exclamation. Looking up, Minorukawa saw what the loan sharks had seen, little Hana, standing by the door. Get her! On it, boss! Ozu and Sagawa rushed at the girl. Run! Minorukawa shouted. Hana bolted right out the door, but Ozu managed to snatch her up as she reached the stairs. Let's be on our way, shall we? A vile grin came to Ozu's full face as he headed down the stairwell. Stop! Let her go! Minorukawa rushed after them, trying to grab the girl, but Sagawa knew a punch right to his face. Oh, the pain staggered him. Nevertheless, he managed to press on. Get your hands off that girl. Shut your damn mouth. Something hard slammed into his chest. His vision went dark. He felt himself slipping from consciousness. Just before he blacked out, he heard Hana's voice. I'm sorry, Uncle Minorukawa. Sorry? No, I'm the one who should apologize. Before his thoughts got any further, Minorukawa passed out. Bad end. We gotta do something in Maria's story, don't we? Hana showed up at the office only to get caught by the moneylenders, and Sagawa Dropkick Minoru. Turns out Hannah had been at the police station just before this, trying to decide if she should tell the police her father had been killed in the explosion. Then someone brought her to Heaven Publishing, which was clearly a mistake. Okay, so Kano? We have to change Kano's decision to visit... Huh. Okay. Let's change... Return... No. Oh, there we go. Hit the wrong button. Wait, oh, wrong, Alright, so... Is this where we choose? No. This... Need to do something. So let's not go see Sagawa. Don't worry. Thought about Sasayama's wife and decided, sure. Had to get in touch with her. He called Sasayama's home phone, but nobody picked up. Perhaps she'd gone to the hospital? Should we ask them to transfer him to Mrs. Sasayama? Okay. After a little while, a woman's voice came through the receiver. Yes, this is Mrs. Sasayama. Her voice was thin and reedy. My name's Shinya Kano. I work with your husband on the force. What happened? He didn't know what to say. He couldn't find the words. I wish that I'd been there. When he'd gone to make that arrest, he put it at last. I should have tried to get there and back him up sooner, if I hadn't been too late. He trailed off, hoping he didn't said too much. Sasayama, whose wife answered in a gentle, wavering voice. Thank you so much for your concern. I'm glad that my husband is lucky enough to have a colleague like you. No, I couldn't. I married a detective, Mr. Kano. I prepared myself for the possibility that something like this might happen. But she certainly didn't sound like she was prepared. Kano felt a biting pain in his chest. Your husband gave me something to hold on for you. I'd like to give it to you if I can. Oh, well, certainly, but I'd like to stay here by his side today if possible. Of course, I'll head on over to the hospital myself then. Hope you don't mind if I pay a visit? Oh, of course not. Sorry to trouble you like this. Thank you so much. Kano hung up and hurried out to the precinct. Is this still gonna have him drop off Hana? It is. Okay. Spotted a girl. Yeah, that's not going to change anything. So we have to call Rumi, I guess. Kano began to worry about Rumi and decided to give her a call. The phone rang several times before it went to voicemail. The fact that she hadn't picked up made Kano all the more anxious. He was still staring at his phone when he got a call of his own. When he appeared at the incoming call display, his heart nearly stopped. There was Tatano's name. Kano quickly pressed the button to accept the call. Detective Tatano? Detective Tatano, is that you? So... Oh no! There's a lot of scenes. Just what had Tatano been doing this whole time? Why did he let Alcarawan go free, and what happened to Hitomi? I was trying to decide what question to pose. Tatano spoke. I've secured Maria Osawa. You have to prepare Tatano unity. This is the same stuff as before, though, I think. Just in a different location? It's that the man from the U.S. Embassy had her in custody. Listening. I'll let for her money. Please, yeah, this is all the same thing. Yep. I'm gonna have him go. So this will skip Hana. There we go. Got it. He hung up. Alright, is this just gonna do the rest, hopefully? Let me see. Oh, good, good, good. So that's everything. But that's going to change Minorikawa's story, thankfully. Alright. Reading right. Minorikawa gave her a copy, a close read over. Yeah. Okay, so this is the same thing. Same as before, the Yakuza guys are going to make a snide comment, but this time Hana's not here. So he's going to sign the debt. Is it just me, or is like Minor? I like Minorikawa, but is he like the least connected person to what's actually going on? Like Kano's connected, Achi's connected, Maria's obviously connected. It's like the reporter guy still hasn't really pulled into the plot yet. I was actually kind of excited when he was with Osawa, but that was a bad end, unfortunately. So there's the debt. Yep. Now he's going to sign it. I'm assuming he's going to sign it since Hana's not here. Stand by and let these scumbags kill his daughter. Got it. Okay, here we go. Norikawa raided his pen and signed the document. Alright! Sagawa cheered. Now we're talking. A satisfied grin came to Ozu's face as he reached for the contract. Before he could pick it up, Chiaki snatched it from the desk. I'm not letting you do this! Crumpling the paper, she stuffed it right into her mouth. Hey! Sagawa snapped. What the hell are you doing? He tried to force Chiaki's mouth open. Don't you dare, you bitch! Despite his frantic efforts, Chiaki managed to get a gulp of water paper down. Sagawa blinked a few times, so you did not just do that. Ozu looked on, dumbstruck. Guess we gotta get a new contract from the office, boss. Bring as many as you want, Chiaki declared. I'll just keep eating them. Girl, you some kind of damn goat or something? The mental image of a goat eating paper is a common one, dating back to long ago when paper was made solely out of plant material. If a goat were to eat modern paper, the wad of chemically treated pulp would go undigested and possibly cause an intestinal blockage. So please, do not feed paper to goats. Sagawa shoved Chiaki up against the desk. Ow, cut it out, that hurts! As she struggled to resist, Chiaki lurched toward the desk, bending in one of her hands to top the TV remote control. One of her fingers happened to land on the volume up button. The sound of the television set soon hit max volume. We've just learned of the identity of the victim killed in the explosion. Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical executive. Shibuya resident? Minorikawa tilted his head in confusion. Chiyama didn't live in Shibuya. Once again, the victim of the explosion was Shibuya resident and pharmaceutical company executive Mamoru Tanaka. The cause of the explosion remains unknown. The police are still in the process of following up several potential leads. The site of the incident remains an alarming scene, with relief workers continuing to tend to the wounded. The four people in the editing office spoke in near unison. Huh? Who's Tanaka? Is that to be continued? Yeah. So that just confirmed that Toyama is still alive. To them. I mean, we already knew that, but now they know it too. Alright. We got Maria's story. I walked counter to the throng of people heading toward the scene of the explosion. The explosion happened in Shibuya-ku, Jinan 1 Chome, near the intersection of Koendori and Ugan Hill. There was a gun pressed against my back, leaving me no choice but to continue marching forward. I don't have time for this right now. There's something I need to do. My frantic sense of urgency grows and grows. Kanan. The only clue I have is that name. The other hazy snippets that have surfaced in my memory provide no answers. Please, just tell me, I murmur. Do you know who I am? When the man with the cane doesn't answer, I stop in my tracks. I'm going to start shouting, I warn him. If you want to find out who you are, then do as I say. The barrel of the gun jabs more forcefully into my back. Once we find Hitomi Osawa, you'll remember, whether you like it or not. Guess I have no choice but to keep moving, then. Are your memories really that precious to you? The man mutters as we start to move again. I'm taken aback by the question. Well, yes. I mean, isn't that pretty normal? There's a bit of a pause before he replies, his voice sad and distant. You're not going to remember just the good times, you know? What do you mean? I mean that sad and painful memories are going to resurface too. I guess I hadn't really thought about that. But still, whatever kind of memories they are, they're all a part of me. I'm the person I am now because of the sorrow and pain, too. I want to remember. I want to remember who I am. The gunman directs me dispassionately along a series of quiet side streets. Right here. I stop at his words. In front of us is an old multi-tenant office building. We ride the elevator to the 8th floor, and use the emergency exit to take the stairs up to the rooftop. A cool breeze blows across my cheek. Sit down there. I do as he says, settling myself on the outdoor air conditioning unit. The man lowers his gun but keeps it in hand. We'll wait here for a bit. For how long? He lets out a rueful chuckle. Guess we'll have to wait and see. I decide there's no point in trying to fight with him. For now, I have to hope he's telling the truth. Whatever's coming will help get my memories back. If I don't know about my past, how can I know what to do about this Canaan stuff or anything else? I stare up at the sky as I wait for whatever this assassin is waiting for. The silence between us is suffocating. Finally, I can't take it any longer. Hey, so I think this is yours. I hold out the notebook I picked up earlier. The man's surprise is plain on his face. Where did you get that? I saw the picture inside. He snatches the book out of my hand. Then he flips through it, looking sad. I'm afraid that another agonizing silence is about to descend when he speaks at last. This is a picture of me and my childhood friends. His voice is low and quiet. We were inseparable back when we were kids. The boy here, he liked to fiddle with machines, always doing things like taking apart radios and whatnot and putting them back together. He was a total bookworm too, so we got picked on a lot. But I was always there to save him from the bullies. All of a sudden, guy's in a sharing mood, I guess. I can feel his aura of murderous rage starting to abate. The girl here was the same age as us, but she felt more like a big sister. Whatever stupid things my other friend and I got up to, she was always willing to laugh it off. So was this some sort of love triangle? Well, okay then, I guess I'm the nosy sort. What was her name? I asked, curious to know more. I decided to stay quiet and keep listening. But yeah, let's do that. So was this some sort of love triangle? Well, okay then, I guess I'm the nosy sort. The man grimaces but nods. When we were in high school, she told me that she liked me. So the two of us started dating. And what about the other boy? I asked. The man casts his eye down but doesn't answer. He was in love with her too, wasn't he? I wound up breaking up with the girl, and he was furious with me for it. The man carefully slips the notebook into the pocket inside his jacket. I'm incapable of making other people happy. Why's that? Because that's the sort of person I am. He lets out a little chuckle and stands up and brushes the dust off his pants. He looks strangely lonely. Oh, it's a keep out. Okay. So who's got a keep out at this time? Or any sort of a keep out, really. I see a jump there. Is this it? Maria. Aha! There it is. Let's see. Is this the keep out? Yes. There we go. I hear a faint voice and realize that the man is listening to a wireless radio. I have managed to secure Hitomi Osawa at Shibuya Central Hospital, the voice says. A gleam comes to the gunman's eyes. He pulls his cell phone from his jacket and hurriedly makes a call. I've secured Maria Osawa, he says to whoever's on the other end. Huh? Maria Osawa? Is my name Maria Osawa? You need to bring Hitomi Osawa to my location at once. Hitomi Osawa. If I'm Maria Osawa, what sort of relationship do I have to Hitomi? If you don't bring her, I'll kill Maria. Then my captor hangs up. Were you serious just now? My voice wavers uncontrollably. What do you mean, you kill me? Don't look at me like that. He steps in closer to me, his expression dangerous. That killer's edge that he'd lost during our little talk is back in full force. Just bear with me a little longer. He blindfolds my eyes with some sort of towel. I can't see through it at all. Just then I hear Kanan's voice inside my head. My memories are like shards of broken glass tumbling through my mind, all out of sequence. How are you able to do that when the string is so tangled up? Once you know the trick to it, you can do it with your eyes closed. I'm showing Kanan how to do a cat's cradle. She reaches out for the string. Huh? She doesn't get a hold of it quite right. What gives? Despite her efforts, the string gets all jumbled up. No, not like that, I say. Hook your index finger through the front part of the string. No, I get that. Kanan's getting irritated. But after giving it a few more tries, she finally manages to pull it off. There we go, she says. Look at that. Seeing her innocent smile bolsters my own spirits. That's neat. Thanks for teaching me. Oh, it's nothing special. Here, as a thanks, let me teach you some skills to help protect yourself. Abruptly, my memory jumps forward a bit. Kanan had been training me in some form of self-defense. Techniques for protecting oneself when attacked. Rather than defeating the opponent, self-defense training generally prioritizes simply getting oneself away from danger. Some people consider behavioral tenets such as run away when you're attacked or don't go near dangerous places to be forms of self-defense as well. Don't overthink it, she says. People will either try to punch you, kick you, or grab you. If you can stay ready for those three things, you'll be able to take it from there. She demonstrates some self-defense, some defensive movements as I watch. I follow suit, doing my best to mimic her. Okay, let's do this. Kanan throws a punch at me. I dodge, grab her by the wrist, and give her a hard twist. Incredibly, she goes whirling through the air. She lands nimbly on her feet, a little grin coming to her face. Nicely done, she says. I stare down at my own hand. Did I really just do that? Once you repeat the movements enough, your body will treat them like second nature. I do as she says, trying to repeat the movements over and over. At first it feels like a silly gimmick, but eventually I can feel the motions growing smoother. There you go. People like those thugs we met before won't get the drop on you again. So this is why she beat the MMA lady earlier. Thugs. My memory sent further back into the past. I was wandering the streets to get back to my hotel, but I'd gotten lost. By the time I realized I'd wandered into some dodgy back streets, I was already surrounded by people giving me threatening looks. They must have been some thugs looking for tourists to rob. If they caught me, I'm not sure I would have made it out alive. But they hadn't. Kanan had seen to that. Thank you so much for what you did for me. I didn't want there to be a scene here. Kanan says bluntly as she surveys the aftermath of the thug's attack. That's all. It happened to be right underneath her, but by the window when I was nearly abducted. Bit by bit, my memories of Kanan are starting to resurface. Just a little more, and I'll have myself back, I'm sure of it. Detective Totno, where are you? A man's voice suddenly snapped me back into the moment. It's Kano. I've come as you asked. The gunman grabs me by the arm and yanks me to my feet. Where's Satomi Osawa? He snarls. Why didn't you bring her? Detective Totno, why are you doing this? Is that really Maria? My captor removes my blindfold. The first thing I see is a huge blimp drifting slowly by overhead. Huh. I'm sure I've seen it before. And pretty recently at that. There was a flash of revelation inside my head, like a dam bursting. My memories come flooding back to me. Last night, I was at a party, a sort of mixer with the exchange students. Someone was plotting to use this party as an opportunity to abduct my sister, Hitomi. And so I told Hitomi that the party started 1 hour later than it really did. I had a plan to let myself get abducted in Hitomi's place. Of course, the idea wasn't just to let myself get kidnapped. The necklace I wore was outfitted with a tiny GPS. Wherever I happened to be taken, Kanan would be able to track my location. What we hadn't counted on, though, was my necklace getting torn off when I was attacked. I managed to grab a hold of it after I hit my head when I was being shoved into the car and it slipped from my grasp. I'm not sure how far we drove after that. In my fuzzy memories, I recall gazing blearily out the car window. That was when I saw the blimp right after we parked. Yes, it went fine. There was a man talking to someone on a cell phone. Alright, I'll shut her up inside the storeroom. I'll be waiting in the room upstairs. That's Leland Palmer, I bet. The man dragged me out of the car and shoved me into some dark storeroom. Wait! That looks like Archie's dad! That's Archie's dad. Archie's dad is in on this. I mean, we know he's in on trying to kill Hitomi, but he's in on this too. He hit me on the head again. That's right. There's more of it coming back to me now. You spent your life living in a country at peace in Japan. You couldn't possibly understand me. Kanan again. So it's not like she and I became fast friends right away or anything. The two of us were too different in a lot of ways. Where do you draw the line? Who would you protect with your life? What does justice mean to you? A forlorn look came to her face whenever Kanan asked me a new question, and I never had a good answer for any of them. My flimsy grasp of my own personal identity made it hard for us to get along. Yet I kept visiting Kanan's place for the duration of my trip. I recall doing the cat's cradle there at the table one time when we didn't have anything in particular to talk about. Her eyes had gone wide when she saw me deftly manipulating the string with my fingers. Who taught you how to do that? She asked. My mother. My real mother, that is. Kanan furrowed her brow. What do you mean, real? As opposed to my stepmother, I mean. My birth mother died after getting really sick. I was only 5 years old, so I don't remember her that well. Wait, I is the stepmother? Wait, what? Hang on. Have they said this before? What? This hasn't been brought up before, has it? So I is their stepmother? I mean, that explains some things, but weird. I see, Kanan said. Their expression remained unchanged. Maybe they did explain this and I just totally forgot. I don't know. What about your parents, Kanan? I don't have any. They died during the war. The bluntness of her response made my hands stop. The string still stretched between them. Sensing that we were treading on some serious ground, I hurried to change the subject. Do you have any friends? No. Well, I used to have one. The use of the past tense made me fear the worst, and I was right. He was killed too, by an arms dealer named Alphard. Her tone was dry and matter-of-fact. Taking revenge for his death is my sole purpose in life. Despite the gravity of her words, her face was an unreadable mask. Also, her character motivation is incredibly anime. She seemed almost incapable of human emotion. So, what sort of person is this Alphard? A destructionist who masquerades as a terrorist. Destructionist? That sure wasn't a term that came up a lot back in Japan. Alphard doesn't believe in God and holds no political ideology. The chaos and destruction is just to earn money in order to carry out more terrorist attacks. So you're saying this Alphard commits terrorism because it's fun? Kanan nodded. That's why every now and then Alphard changes loyalties. Just when you think you've found ties to some Middle Eastern terrorist organization, turns out the job was for the American CIA. What the heck? So Alphard stands for nothing then? Kanan smiled dismissively at my little childish outburst. I couldn't help but feel a little patronized. I twiddled my fingers, turning the cat's cradle into a bridge. Kanan's eyes fixed right back on the string. A tiny surge of pride replaced my annoyance. She went quiet, watching closely as I worked my fingers. The tension in the room faded as the silence between us lengthened. My stepmother's sort of person who couldn't do this sort of thing, I said at last. For some reason, I had a sudden urge to talk about my personal life. I guess she cares about herself more than looking after her children. She's not a bad person, though. She gives me weird bits of advice, like telling me to find someone to date, or that a woman's life is defined by a man. But it's not like I hate her or anything. Would you mind teaching me? Kanan asked softly. What? How to find a guy to date? No. She shook her head. Then she pointed to the cat's cradle strung between my finger. Oh, you mean this? So I took her by the hand and started to teach her the cat's cradle. Hey, do you mind if I ask you something? I said after a while. What's that? That friend you mentioned earlier. What was he like? Kanan's fingers went still. It's better if you don't ask. If I tell you, you won't want to come here anymore. That's not true, he insisted. Even though I'm a terrorist, she replied curtly. One who uses fear and violence to attain political objectives. The term has its origins in the Reign of Terror in 18th century France, known in French as La Terreur. I swallowed a sudden lump in my throat, unable to find words. We fight for righteousness, but you people call us terrorists. In the religious sense, instead of being virtuous, free of sin, and observant of the proper rules of moral conduct. Not the same as being in the right, though many people equate the two. Am I wrong? She cast a quick look at my face. But I mean, you protected me. My voice wavered as I replied. All I did was take down some thugs. I just didn't want them around. What could I say to that? I just stammered. No, I'm just messing with you. Huh? Kanan flashed me another slight, condescending grin. I was just joking. Don't worry about it. But I didn't get the sense that everything she'd said was a joke. Even if calling herself a terrorist was an exaggeration. The world Kanan lived in was unquestionably a dangerous one. I could tell that from the cold look in her eyes, a look you'd never expect from an ordinary teenage girl. Just what sort of hardships that she endured to acquire that deadly stare? Having lived all of my life in peaceful Japan, I could scarcely imagine. Kanan tried and failed several times to get the cat's cradle right, but she didn't give up. She worked fastidiously by herself, fingers continuing to shift awkwardly about. Okay, here we go. She hooked the string around her fingers and spread her palms. But the string shape just collapsed into a jumbled mess. Confound it. Okay, one more time. You can make this into a game with two people, you know? I plucked the string from Kanan's hands. He passed the string back and forth. Why don't we try that? It's more fun than doing it by yourself. I wrapped the string around my fingertips. What do you say? Want to give it a go? Kanan looked dubious. The intricately intertwined strings were like the world in a way. What had started as a single thread was now something that couldn't be undone just by pulling on it. I held my hands out, twirling the string around my fingers. Kanan took the pattern from me and spread her palms apart. She made a perfect bridge between her hands. The shy grin that came to her face made her finally look like a normal girl. I followed suit, with a childish little laugh of my own. And as if in a blaze of sunshine, the fog that's been hanging over my mind finishes receding. I remember everything. My name is Maria Osawa. My sister is Hitomi Osawa. And Kanan, she's a dear friend who I met in a far-off land. She helped me once, and now it's my turn to help her. I close my eyes as I reflect upon these precious memories, all the dearer for having been lost. Now when I try to picture Kanan, I can do so clearly. Just as if I thought before. My memories are what make me who I am, and I would never choose to forget them. I feel almost as if time had stopped for me when my history was gone, and now it started moving again. I'm finally back to being me. Hey, it's another video. I have to go back there one more time. End of her story. And oh, wild. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's a good of an ending point as I think we can do. But whoa. That's it. Maria's story is done. Now we just have the last 4. So, next time, I think we're coming to the conclusion of this epic tale. We will see how things resolve. See you next week.